Signs of the day from CMR.
And brought to you exclusively on Kiss FM by J. Michael, fashion for everyone. Good morning, Sandy.
Hi, morning, Blake and Aaron. How are you guys doing?
Good. I'm just catching up on your news.
Oh my gosh.
4:30 in the morning, a bicyclist got hit and the guy ran off.
Yeah, so much news yesterday. You know, some days are like that. So let's run through them really quick. Probably the biggest story of the day was that Mr. Makiva Bush, former Speaker of the House and MP West Bay West, has been arrested and charged with indecent assault and common assault.
Wow. And on International Women's Week and International Women's Day today.
The timing is kind of perfect in a way.
So what's going to happen now?
What will happen now?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if he'll plead guilty, but it's summary court, so he can remain in summary court like the last time, which I suspect that he will.
Is he still on probation from the last offense, though?
That's the $1 million question, and it's possible. I was trying to figure out the timing exactly, so I think the court is going to have to pull that up to verify, but I suspect that he still was.
Which would mean jail time then, likely.
It should. Yeah. In very exceptional circumstances, would they not give someone jail time who breached an existing order and for similar offenses once again?
Wow.
Or even just, a second and third offense. You know?
Yeah. So, as soon as we get confirmation on those, for sure. But he has to first be found guilty of this for that to then become live. The murder trial of Javon also ended in a hung jury yesterday. So while Makiva was next door, we were in the other courtroom trying to see what this jury was going to do, and they just could not come to any sort of a decision. So hung jury, they start all over is basically how it works.
Trial, All right. Well, fun. And then what's the latest on this hit and run around 4:30 that someone chased down the person that rang and they got the driver's license?
So we had several accidents overnight. One on Crew Road by Amelia's Kitchen, which is next to the airport. That looks like a flip.
How would you flip your car? You'd have to be going really fast to do something like that.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so slow down.
And then the other one is this hit and run. I don't know if they eventually found the person or what happened, but yes, there is this allegation that someone hit and took off. So we're waiting on the police to perhaps update that story for us. Crazy stuff. But yeah, those are some days are really popping when it comes to news. And I must say yesterday kept us on our feet. There was a big fentanyl bust, by the way. We're posting that story up here in a couple of minutes. We were just verifying a few aspects of that story.
Here in Cayman.
Over 200 tablets of fentanyl. Which is enough to kill a lot of people.
I was going to say, it's the minuscule amount of fentanyl could kill someone. And people need to know that. Parents need to tell their kids that.
On the tip of a pen.
It's
definitely. And, we've had several fatal overdoses in the last 6 months to a year.
Stuff, man.
And it's nothing to mess around with because I suspect that some of those have been laced with
Sandy,
fentanyl.
happy International Women's Day.
Yes, thank you. Same to you, Aaron, and all the women out there.
Yep. And we'll catch your show right now on Bobo 89.1 FM, and we'll see you tomorrow on KISS for the Thursday headlines. All right?
Sounds great. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
You too.
Again, our segment brought to
All right, folks. Busy morning. Let me just grab my links so we can get started here, honey chow. Okay, hold on one second. There's the YouTube link. Now I need the Facebook link. All right. Get it.
Bigger, better, bolder. The cold, hard truth is taking talk to the next level. Right here on Bobo 89.1 FM, Cayman's Community Radio. We are still spilling the tea and committed to being part of the change that Cayman so desperately needs. Join Sandy Hill weekdays from 7:30 a.m. for Premier Access, Cayman Voices, Truthful Thursdays, and much more. Cayman's #1 talk show is now bigger, better, bolder, and more than talk. Getting results with hot topics, consumer reports, court exposés, and more.
I've come to set the record straight. I've come to shine the light on you. Let me introduce myself. I am the cold, hard truth.
Now, from the CMR studio in Grand Cayman, live, direct, it's the cold, hard truth. Now, join the conversation on 345-936-2626.
That number again is
345-936-2626.
Good morning, beautiful people. Happy Wednesday. Oh my gosh, what can I tell you? Yesterday was a super busy news day. Some days are like that. Some days are a little bit slower with news, and other days it's like one story after the next. And it just so happened, folks, that yesterday was one of those days. So I do have a guest who's going to be joining us in studio. We've actually got multiple guests this morning. The first one that is going to come up is going to give us a brief update on where we are with the Russia situation, Russia and Ukraine. It's been a year now. So I figured, why not, get a quick little update. Yep. So we're going to, unpack some of that. And then our second guest who'll be joining us this morning is going to be providing, this woman is so incredibly brave, but essentially she is a rape victim, a survivor of sexual assault. And so she's going to be joining us this morning as well. So big shout out to the good folks over at Burger King. They sponsor a show now every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And so, pay them a little visit if you can. We appreciate their sponsorship. Makes all of this possible. So guess what? Yesterday, let's dig into a little bit of news before a guest comes on the program. Yesterday morning, he's no longer honorable, that's for sure. Ooh, disgraced. Mr. McKeeva Bush. Unfortunately, somebody said I just went robotic on radio. I'll let Chuck know. I don't really know what's causing that, but I know for sure it's not on my end, whatever that is. I know. I'll have them look into it because I feel like this is a recurring problem that something's going on over there. Yep. Somebody says Bobo has gone robotico. Ooh, honey child. Yes. So I want to jump into a few things. So yesterday morning, I told you guys I was trying to get to court a little bit early so that we could see what exactly the jury was going to do in the Javon Dixon murder trial. And it turns out that they were unable to come to any sort of a conclusion. They tried and they were out since Friday. And the judge even said to them, you can consider the lesser offense of manslaughter. And you know what? I think this is what it was. Say, for example, we don't know what the numbers are. The whole jury process, somebody says the radio sounds like it got the flu. The whole jury process in the Cayman Islands is shrouded in mystery, right? I think that's why a lot of you don't even want to serve jury duty because you're like, can't be bothered. You see, I'm one of those people who I've always wondered, why have I not been called for jury duty? I would have loved to have served as a juror. I'm like, call me. I'm your friend because I'm going to pay attention. Thanks, Chuck. I understand the radio's now fixed. I'm going to pay attention and I'm going to focus on the evidence before me. I am a very, astute person. I'm going to be picking stuff apart, but I never got called. And I've been registered to vote since I returned to Cayman because I am like, listen, I'm all about, your civic duty. I think in the US, it's just much more acceptable for you to serve for jury duty. That's your responsibility. You're a citizen, you're a resident. That's exactly what you do, right? Well, in Cayman, most of you are always trying to get out of jury duty. And I think that that's quite unfortunate. So, they've been considering opening jury duty to people who have permanent residency, who haven't yet acquired their status. I think that maybe that's not a bad idea. I don't necessarily have an issue with that. But this particular jury, they couldn't decide. And there's in the US, there was this murder case the other day. This guy, what was his name? Murdoch or something. He killed, he's now convicted of killing his wife and his son. After that, the jurors gave their why they convicted him, what happened in the deliberation room. Like, they can talk a lot. There's a lot of transparency after the fact about what happens. Here in the Cayman Islands, the jurors, or especially in this case, they're told you cannot discuss this case with anyone, even now that you're done serving your jury time. You can't talk about it. You can't talk about what happened in the jury room. Like, it's all this mystery surrounding it, and I'm not really sure why. Right? I think we need to demystify it, educate people about the entire jury system and how it works, and you guys need to do your civic duty. You need to get in there. Now, I get it that we're a small community. And sometimes I suspect that people might feel a little bit intimidated. And I think there are ways to, even this jury tried to eliminate the contact, because Javon's family is very, very supportive of him. So every single day of that trial, they were there for jury duty. And I mean, for jury duty, they were there for the trial. And sometimes that actually can weigh on the psyche of the jurors. But guess what? The police were showing up too every single day after they gave their evidence. All 4 or 5 detectives were sitting there in court, because I think that in their minds, they needed to offset what they perceived to be heavy support on his side for the family and what that might have been saying to the jurors. Now, his family members, the family member of the deceased, he only had 1 or 2. His mom, and I don't know if that's her sister, who that was, but they started to show up as well, and they came to they came to the trial, and it was such a stark situation to watch. And this is where, listen, people can destroy their own lives, and they can certainly destroy the lives of their family members and other people when they get in situations like this, because here you have 2 Caymanian families, the mother and I think it's her sister of the deceased, literally with their backs turned. They're sitting in, it's just a very small gallery. They're sitting there with their backs turned. You watch the body language. They're sitting there with their backs turned to the rest of the people who are there in support of this young man, space between them kind of thing. It is so sad. I mean, I looked at it and I thought to myself, wow, this is who we don't want to be. We don't want to be sitting in a jury gallery, in a courtroom gallery, with their backs turned to each other because one young Caymanian is being accused of taking the life of another young Caymanian. I think what also made this particularly complex, probably in the minds of, and I don't know how much the jurors know, because again, they don't talk about it publicly or anything like that, because we know that the deceased had a reputation. Everybody will tell you in the streets, this kid, not only was he not an angel, a lot of people say he was a devil. He was accused of some atrocious things. A lot of people believe that he himself has gotten away with murder. So there's not that many people who are feeling sympathetic for his loss of life, but the law is there not to work upon your sympathies, but to work upon the evidence that is presented. And so on another day, I don't think we're gonna have time today. I'm gonna unpack some of what the defense said and the prosecution said so that you can understand both cases. I want us to be cautious though, because of course, this is coming up for retrial. So we don't want to do anything that's going to delay the process on this platform, because you know what they're going to say, honey chill. Oh my gosh, CMR talked about it. Now we can't find a jury, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to tread very, very lightly. And I'm only going to share what transpired in court. I will not be giving my opinion one way or the other on the evidence at this particular stage. Caller, buenos dias. How are you?
Buenos dias. Not bad. So you believe that non-Caymanians should be jurors?
Well,
in
you know
cases.
what, Denny, given the, I mean, if you've ever have you ever been a juror, by the way?
And maybe they have you and I on a blacklist.
Well, I don't understand. Again, it's showed in such secrecy that I don't even know how they pick people. Because now I believe, according to the law, I'm not eligible for jury duty because I work in media. And there's a lot of categories of people who are exempted from jury duty just because of their profession. And I think that maybe that has to change as well. And they should probably look closely at those professions, because just because I'm in media, that doesn't mean that I can't be impartial. What does that mean? You know what I'm saying? I obviously couldn't cover that particular case. But I can be impartial.
Right.
So I think that some of the rules around it need to be adjusted. But the jury pool, because the Caymanian pool is very, very slim. So I think that if we have to consider opening it up to people who have PR but are on their way to status, like maybe they've already submitted their application, there's no apparent reason why they wouldn't get it. I mean, I don't know if we can really do that, but I'm just saying that I think the pool is too small. The pool is too small, Denny.
Well, let's get people.
Or here's another alternative.
One second. Let's work on getting people to understand why it's beneficial to follow.
No, but it's not just about that. A lot of times Cayman is so small, everybody goes in there, oh, I know that person. And the judge has to say, well, how well do you know the person? I remember with one of my trials, this young lady stood up and says, yeah, I know Sandy. And the judge says, yeah, everybody knows Sandy. The question is, how well do you know her? Are the two of you hanging out every week? Are you breaking bread? And to be honest, this is a person that I am closer with her sister. And I know her, like, to say hi, how you doing? If I see her, sometimes I don't even see this one for a year. So I thought it interesting that she was trying to say, oh, you can't pick me because I know who Sandy Hill is. And the judge was like, honestly, everybody knows who this woman is. So we gotta be broader. And
well, those kind of responses are clearly people who are looking
for an
excuse. Get out of their responsibility. Yeah.
Yes, so a lot of times that's happening.
What we need is education for people to understand why the system is important.
Yeah. But remember now, not only that, but I mean, you go through a jury pool so quickly because the defense and the prosecution, for absolutely no reason or any reason at all, can say we object. We don't want that juror.
I must tell you that I'm not impressed with a lot of lawyers. I must tell you that. But in rebuttal
here's
to
Catherine.
Your statement.
Catherine says, I've been in Cayman 41 years. I've never been called for jury duty. Catherine, question for you. Out of the 41 years, were you a registered voter that entire time, which means that you would have been in the pool of available individuals? You see, you also have to be a registered voter. So for young people who don't even register to vote, they will never be called for jury duty. And I think that gap for sure has to be closed. Get a list of all Caymanians, registered voters or not, and put them in the jury pool. Why are we talking about if you're not a registered voter? Because there's some people who will never register to vote for the very same reason that they don't want to be called up for jury duty. So that shouldn't be the list that the authorities are pulling from. I think that they need to pull from a broader list. So that's the only reason why I was suggesting, PR. Now, I don't know. I think this could be something for the MPs. It might be in the judicature law. And so the MPs themselves might have to change this in order to make it, what the legal position is. But I think they need to do it. And they should do it very, very quickly.
To make it broader?
Yes. To make it broader in the sense of at least non-voters who are Caymanians.
But yeah, non-voters who are Caymanians, yes. But not non-Caymanians. You can't have non-Caymanians making decisions in court cases.
Tracy says, not to mention that many folks are related on island. So hard to be non-biased, not to mention it's a small island and people talk and form opinions even without knowing them. So Catherine says she's had her status. Hold on now. Catherine has had status since 1992. How many years is that? 1992 minus 2023. That is 31 years. And in 31 years, she has never been called for jury duty.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible.
That is beyond incredible. That is egregious. Likewise, I have been back since 90. I came back in 96. and I got registered to vote right away because I think right after that there was a general election. I was ready and I voted and blah blah blah, and I've never been called. So now that I can't be called, I mean, it's like, why didn't y'all call me before?
From the day I turned 18, my mother and my grandmother said, "Come, let's go,"
Yeah.
and I was registered. But I mean, it's not just a small island. Listen, if you think we have those issues, every country in the world has those issues. We're not special. We're people just like them, right?
Let me
no
see.
different.
I'm trying to see where. Okay, here are the exemptions. I'm going to go through the exemptions. Like I said, we are waiting on a guest, but someone says in the States they use anyone who has a Florida driver's license and resident, so it doesn't discourage people from registering to vote. So
you can also walk across the border in Texas.
You
too.
have to be a U.S. citizen. Which one is it? Oh, you don't have to be registered to vote. Oh, I see. So, but you can get a driver's license and be a resident without being a U.S. citizen. So I'm a little bit confused by that last part.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right. I think you.
So
I'm not sure.
this person
I'm
says
absolutely sure about Florida.
Some people have been called multiple times while others have never been called. You see, this is where I think now the court's office and whatever process however they choose people, this needs to be demystified, because this makes no sense. If you've been called multiple times to jury duty, and yet someone like Catherine has been registered to vote for 31 years and has never been called, clearly the system, there's something wrong. I mean,
Yes, I agree. There's something wrong.
Someone says that they need to increase the age and stop excluding senior citizens. The amount of seniors I know that have nothing wrong with their head that would be perfect, including myself and my husband. And I've lived in Cayman for 40 odd years and I've never been called for jury duty. You see what I'm saying? How is that possible? And in fact, again, Caymanians, as well as people who required status, you have a responsibility to your own country to serve in some capacity, right? We're not asking y'all for much. This is one of the things you could do. So here's the composition of a juror. So I'm going to go through this list, Danny, if you want to hang up and listen, of who is not eligible to serve. A lot of y'all might not know this, so this might be a little education here this morning. Danny, you want to hang up, or you? Yeah.
I'm going to listen to you.
Okay. All right. So let's get it. Let me pull this up on screen so that everyone can see this list. So we have, hold on. The governor, of course, cannot serve. That makes sense. We have, let's see here. Can y'all see that? Yes. We have the deputy governor. So France Manderson can never serve. Member of the Cayman Islands Parliament. Again, that one is logical. We can understand MPs can't serve. A judge or magistrate. Fair enough. That's okay. This is, again, composition of jurors. Section 8 of the judicature law is what it's called.
Judicature.
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 Yeah. The spouse, civil partner, offspring, stepchild, or legally adopted child of a person specified in paragraph A, B, C, or D. So hold on a second. You see what I'm telling you now? This is where this doesn't make any sense. So the spouse, civil partner, offspring, stepchild, or legally adopted child of the governor, the deputy governor, and MPs, or judge or magistrate. Why? So France Manderson's children can never serve. Well, the governor, he doesn't have Cayman status, so let's not even think about him, right? But all MPs, all of their children, their spouses, stepchildren, legally adopted children, they can't serve. That, to me, it's too broad. The child of a judge or magistrate. Okay. I mean, I would say the child of that specific judge or magistrate, not just the judge or magistrate kind of, generally speaking.
You mean the judge and the judge of the particular case shouldn't be able to serve.
Exactly.
But the child of
the judge.
The judge, not a judge.
Right. A public officer employed in the cabinet office. So I'm trying to think how big cabinet office is, but yeah, that's maybe 10, 12, another, whatever number of people. An attorney at law actively engaged in litigation practice. Maybe that's fair, because that doesn't include corporate attorneys. But I've never seen an attorney called to jury duty at all. So what?
Well, that might be an economic decision.
But it shouldn't be a decision for them to make. A person registered to practice medicine under the Health Practice Act. So imagine now, every single physician, and I don't know when they say to practice medicine, if that's just doctors. I'm hoping that doesn't include any other support staff, because my God, again, ridiculous. An officer of a court of competent jurisdiction. Who is an officer of a court of competent jurisdiction? Who would that be?
That would be all
the court staff.
Yeah.
Jeez, I'm peace. Now we're into the hundreds that are a constable. So all police officers, a person appointed as a prison officer. So all prison officers, a person who's mentally disordered. Okay, that we get as defined in the Mental Health Act. Any person who's been charged with an offense and is currently before the courts of the Cayman Islands, pending trial for that offense. Okay. Any person who's been convicted before any court of the Cayman Islands for an offense for which that person was sentenced to a term of imprisonment and who has not received a free pardon in respect to that offense. Folks, convictions, that right there is 25% of the population. I hate to tell you.
So no consideration for rehabilitation.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Pretty soon you won't have any jurors at all.
Oh, yeah. All right, let me go. My first guest is here, and it's a very, very busy morning, folks, but I feel like we do have to return to this conversation. By the way, there is a situation that is popping off at the bus depot. And so I am waiting on them to essentially tell me if they can join in. I don't have any videographers, anybody who can go on the scene, but they can easily join into the show and show us what's going on. So apparently there's actually a strike out by the bus depot today. And if they want to call and tell us why they're striking and what's going on, then by all means, please do so. I'm just having a quick look because somebody just called me about this situation. All right, so let's pull in our first guest. And I'm told that traffic on West Bay Road this morning, folks, is horrendous. I think this might be in relation to the hit and run situation that occurred last night. I'm not sure if there are any fatalities out of that. This person says 4 police vehicles on the scene blocking off Queen's Court. And that's where the incident happened. So I will put this up as a traffic alert now. But I suspect that if police are still on the scene after this happened at 4 something in the morning, there was probably a fatality, because normally they don't stay on the scene that long for a non-fatal accident. But let's go ahead and invite our first guest into the show this morning. We have Professor and Director of the USF Institute for Russian, European, and Eurasian Studies. I believe, yes, Dr. Golfo Alexopoulos, and I probably butchered her name.
Alexopoulos. Hi, Sandy.
Good morning, Doctor. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm so good. First of all, thank you again for being on the program. Happy 2023. We've not seen you this year yet.
Yeah. Thank you for the invitation.
You're always such a wealth of amazing information. I love having you on the show, but I don't like having you in the show under these circumstances.
No, I know.
Oh my gosh, the war is still going on over a year now.
I know, Sandy. By the way, I love being on your show too, and thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're all really surprised that it's a year into this horrible war, and it's worse than we thought. So yeah, I think it took everybody by surprise, really.
Oh my gosh. What is accounting for how long this war has been going on for?
So I think that there are several reasons. One is that the Ukrainians put up a tremendous resistance. I don't think there were many observers who anticipated this kind of resistance from the Ukrainians. And it was really across society. It was the elites. It was Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, who stayed in the country and did not flee. It was ordinary civilians who were outraged by this invasion. I think that the Russians expected, or the Kremlin expected, that there would be collaborators, there would be people who would join along with the Russians and accept the invasion. And the resistance was just so overwhelming. That I think that's what stopped the Russian advance. I think that Western support and the unified response of the West was also a factor. And I also think that the Russian army didn't perform as well as many people expected them to. And so things just got bogged down. They have seized a lot of territory. I do think that's really important to underscore that, you know, they have occupied almost 20% of Ukrainian territory.
Wow.
But still, the Ukrainians are trying to push back.
Yes. And when you talk about the lack of support that the Russian government has gotten really from their own people, I mean, we've seen extremely wealthy people, non-wealthy people. In fact, there's been, I understand, a bit of a mass exodus. I don't know if that's a correct term, but of Russian men who are eligible for war absconding and leaving the country so that they don't get caught up in this, because they do not want to go and fight in Ukraine.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, when the war broke out, there were protests in Russia, and then the government cracked down really heavily on the protesters. And there are thousands of people in jail right now for tweeting you know, their opposition to the war, or holding up a blank sign, or just any kind of opposition the government's been really cracking down on. And if you call this a war as opposed to a special military operation, you can be subject to up to 15 years in prison. So the crackdown was immediate. So the only way for people to really express their dissent was in other ways, by leaving the country. You know, many people fled the country, especially after the mobilization order. So young men, actually up to like 50, left the country to avoid mobilization. So the estimates are hard to come by, but I have seen anywhere between 500,000 to 1 million people that have left the country since the war started.
That's a lot.
It's a lot, and many of these are the best and, you know, the most educated people have left. Some, you know, people in the tech sector, people in, you know, academics who can't speak their mind at universities. So, but it's really across the board. It's many of my friends have left, for example.
Very sad. So let's talk about what sort of damage are we looking at? I mean, I know it's hard for us to even fathom exactly what has been done in the past year to the people of Ukraine, but do we have any fix on the number of lives lost on the Ukrainian side? And I want to talk about the casualties on the Russian side as well, because although I think Russia has been downplaying it, there's good evidence to say that they've had really, really substantial losses.
Right. No, that's absolutely right. So I have seen estimates between 100,000 and 200,000 casualties. So that would be dead and wounded. The estimates are that there are more dead and wounded on the Ukrainian side than on the Russian side. But the numbers are still immense. I think the Ukrainians have also been the victims of war crimes, as Vice President Harris noted recently at the Munich conference. People have been talking about how how in Bucha and in Irpin and in many cities that were occupied by the Russians but then liberated, there's been massive evidence of atrocities, the killing of civilians. So yeah, it's just astounding. Russians have also gone after, or I should say the Kremlin, because this is really Putin's regime, has really gone after the electrical grid, the water supply, in order to make life in Ukraine untenable and in order to provoke a refugee crisis in Europe. So anything that will, destabilize Europe or create problems in Europe, they're happy to do. So these are some of the issues that we face. I think that we're going to be reckoning with this war for decades.
Oh my God. That's unfathomable, quite honestly.
Yeah.
This morning, I see that there's news about some fierce battling that's happening in, is it
Bakhmut. Yeah. So it's interesting because some military observers question the strategic importance of Bakhmut, and yet it's been this site of incredible fighting. Part of the explanation for that is that Putin is using proxies and professional military, these kind of military contractors a lot. And one of the most prominent military contractors is the Wagner Group, which some of your listeners may have heard of, and it's run by this friend of Putin's, Prigozhin. So it's the Wagner Group mercenaries, and many of these individuals are prisoners who have just been used as cannon fodder, frankly. So they've been thrown into the battle. And I think, what I've heard from military specialists is that this has been Wagner's way of demonstrating that they're important to the fight or that they can secure a victory. In the meantime, the Ukrainians don't want to let Bakhmut fall because that would just symbolically, just having a loss in the battlefield when they're trying to get Western support and show that they're winning would not be good. But Bakhmut itself, it's not like it's incredibly, it's an incredibly critical location or anything like that, or has any strategic importance necessarily.
Right. So this, just pronounce it again, because Wagner, but how is it pronounced?
It's the Wagner Group. Some people call it the Wagner Group.
But that's the Americanized version.
That's the Americanized. But I've actually heard the Americans, in American media call it the Wagner Group, because it's actually named after the composer Wagner. So the German composer. So yeah, I think Wagner is really probably the best way to say it.
Yeah. And this is a private military company.
Yes, exactly.
That is giving support to the Russian regular forces. Exactly.
And in fact, Putin is relying on a bunch of kind of non-official forces. So in addition to the Wagner Group, there's the Chechen fighters under Chechen strongman Ramzan Kadyrov, and he has his own fighters in there to kind of show that he is, supporting the Russian cause and earning brownie points with Putin. And then there are just these various irregular forces that Putin is relying upon. So in addition to the normal, official army of the Russian Federation, there are these other fighting forces out there that Putin's relying on.
Interesting. So just to bring people up to par about this battle now, that's, this is what is happening in real time for Bakhmut. The Ukrainians have reportedly inflicted massive losses on attacking forces in the city. Estimates are 7-1. So for me, you talked about the fact that this has gone on for so long because the Ukrainians have really put up quite a good defense, and they fought beyond, I guess, what definitely Russia expected. Because remember when you first came on the program, we were saying how Putin believed that this was going to be an in and out kind of war. Like he was going to get in there, take over Ukraine, and that was going to be the end of it. And here we
Absolutely.
are a year later, still saying that not only has that not happened, but
Yeah.
even in the latest battles, their losses on the Russian side have been significant by potentially 7-1. How
Yeah.
is Ukraine
Yeah.
doing it? I mean,
So part of the answer to that is who these forces are. Like, so they're going into, it's largely the private military contractors. It's largely Wagner. They're going into prisons. They're trying to get, sorry about my cat. I don't know if you can hear my cat.
Is that your cat joining the conversation?
I think he wants to get out.
Yes.
But so it's part of the fact that these men are not trained, and they're not given adequate supplies. And the Ukrainian forces, for all of their challenges as well, they're better trained, and there might be few of them, but they have superior supplies. And so that's why you see this incredible differential in the casualties. So really, Putin, there's no concern for loss of life on the Russian side. They're just throwing bodies at the problem and trying to hold territory based on the number of bodies that they have in the fight. And it's really tragic. I mean, the likelihood of dying as a prisoner, somebody who's released from prison and told to go fight and actually promised freedom if they come home alive and are heroes in the battlefield and all this.
Right.
It's just terrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
And that explains some of the human atrocities. I think that people need to recognize exactly when Russia is successful and they've captured areas and so on. There's mass gang rapes. There's a lot that has been happening. Let's put some of that in context before we take a few of the questions this morning.
Right. So the atrocities that we see in Ukraine are atrocities that we have seen in that area, that we saw in that area during the Second World War. So the deportation of entire populations, moving populations. They're taking children, Ukrainian children, and moving them into the interior of Russia and having them adopted by Russian families, even though they're not necessarily orphans or anything. So that using children that way, and because the Kremlin viewed this as, because their imperialist war viewed Ukrainians as really Russians who pretend not to be Russians and speak this dialect of Russian because Ukrainian isn't a real language and so on. They denied the essence of Ukrainian ethnicity. And because of that, they have changed the history books. They have replaced Ukrainian language with Russian language. They have had Ukrainian children be adopted by Russian families. I mean, it's this kind of a genocidal elimination of a culture. So there's that end, but there's also the physical acts of terror, terrorizing communities by killing a certain segment in order to terrorize the rest. It's really so to put the violence in perspective, I think it's important to stress that Putin is a very violent leader, and he has deployed violence repeatedly. He's poisoned critics, he's jailed people, he's assassinated people. So this is part of his MO, is to terrorize people in order to ensure that they will comply with his wishes. So I think another reason why he uses these private military contractors is that he can get around the Geneva Conventions on the laws of war and say, well, my army is not doing that. I don't have anything to do with Wagner and so on. So yeah, it's quite disturbing.
Wow. So Russian forces are attacking Bakhmut from 3 directions. The president of Ukraine has said that although the city is largely abandoned from a strategic perspective, they still, from a tactical perspective, they still consider Bakhmut to be very, very important to his country because it essentially opens up, it'd be an open road, is what he was quoted as saying, to the Kremlin to capture other key cities. So it's important that they fight to keep it in Ukrainian control.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I've heard different things about that, but I think they're trying to hold the Donbass. They're trying to retake territory lost in the Donbass. So yeah.
Now, the response from the rest of the world continues. There's still, I guess, sanctions in place. Have there been any increased pressure on Russia? Any additional sanctions in recent times other than what was initially done?
So there have been sanctions against individuals. There have been sanctions against, microchips and technology and elements that the Russians rely on to support their military sector. There have been sanctions on energy. So the jury is kind of out on the sanctions, to be honest, because I've heard some analysts say that Russians have been able to get around the sanctions by getting their microchips from China or from other places, and having that kind of laundered through countries like Central Asia or India or elsewhere, that they have a very competent head of the Russian central bank, Nabulina. She's an excellent economist who over the past year has somehow held the Russian economy together. So there hasn't been hyperinflation or a collapse of the economy. So I think there have been multiple sanctions, but on the ground, it appears that the lives of ordinary Russians have not changed all that much. Yes, the foreign companies have left, and it's hard for them to manufacture many things like cars, for example, will be hard, and they're having a hard time with their military supplies. That's why they're turning to Iran and North Korea and elsewhere. There's a question about whether or not China would circumvent the sanctions. China has demonstrated that they're not going to circumvent the sanctions. So should I let this little guy out of my...
Oh my gosh, I don't think he's going to stop if you don't let him out.
All right. One second.
Just hit the little button to turn your camera off, and then I'm going to read a few things while you do that. So there's a little option there to stop camera.
Oh, my husband just got him.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is a very vocal cat, I must say. He was, let me out of here. Oh my goodness. I've never heard a cat meowing so much.
I know. No, he is very loud. People ask me like, what is that, a baby? No, it's not a baby.
Oh my goodness. So, So just a couple of things here. When we talk about the support from the rest of the world, I was reading an article about South Korea, how they have been, selling and producing missiles, tanks, artillery shells, and other munitions to a massive increase of 140% to a record $17.3 billion worth of arms, including a deal worth $12.4 billion to sell tanks, fighter jets, and multiple rocket launchers to Poland, who happens to be one of Ukraine's closest allies. But yet they have refused, and this is South Korea, not North Korea for the record, they have refused to sell directly to Ukraine because they are fearful of openly antagonizing Moscow. So there still seems to be this bit of a resistance with some countries who it seems like they want to help the Ukrainian people, but they're not willing to openly do it like South Korea. How many people are still on the fence here?
Yeah, there are quite a few actually. Like India has been neutral, and a lot of major countries in Latin America. There are several that have not kind of openly supported, but when there's a UN resolution, they'll abstain. Even, China supports Russia, but it's not willing to send lethal weapons or circumvent the sanctions because it still wants to maintain business ties with Europe and the United States. So there are countries that are concerned about this. And the main reason is that there are many countries that still rely on Russian oil and gas, India and China, for example. And so because they do benefit from Russian energy imports, they are not openly in favor of supporting Ukraine militarily. And I think Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, has been sympathetic about that. And I think that Americans, the administration has been careful not to put allies and partners in a position where they're doing something that goes against their national interests or that makes them uncomfortable based on their ties, where they are in the region, what kind of ties they want to have with Russia. So it is tricky. But your point, though, Sandy, about the increase in military spending, I mean, this war has made so many countries around the world increase their military expenditures. It really has. I think there are countries in Europe that have, like France, has increased its military budget by 40%, which is huge. So and it's all about the view that Russia is now a threat and that it could. If it has invaded Ukraine, it can invade another country. And so that is a concern. I think across the globe, you see different countries thinking about their defense budget and increasing it. So that's a very worrisome development.
Of course, because for many, many years, it was all about, de-arming nations.
Right.
Encouraging people to what do they call it? Non-proliferation.
Right.
Trying to get rid of nukes and all this other stuff. But wow.
Right. And in fact, on that point, there was a memorandum, the Budapest Memorandum of 1994, that involved Ukraine giving up its nuclear weapons, because when the Soviet Union collapsed, there were a bunch of republics with nuclear weapons. Belarus had some nuclear weapons, Ukraine did, Kazakhstan did. And even though they didn't have the command and control over these nuclear weapons, that was still in Russia, they were nuclear powers. They had weapons on their territory. And so in order to rein that in, the United States and the UK and Russia at the time signed this memorandum that would, in exchange for these newly independent states giving up their nuclear weapons, we would ensure their security. Their borders would be secure. Well, obviously, that didn't happen in the case of Ukraine. And so, some people say, well, the lesson that many small countries will draw from this invasion is that they need to have nuclear weapons, which is also another incredibly concerning outcome, of this war. And some Ukrainians have said that too. If we never gave up our nuclear weapons in 94, we wouldn't be in this position. So it's very, very disturbing.
Yes. Wow. Now, we heard something about an explosion of some pipelines a couple days ago. Can you tell us what that was about? Someone did it on behalf of Ukraine, a pro-Ukrainian group actually sabotaged some pipelines.
Yeah. Was that in Russian territory? Is that right?
Yes. This is the Nord Stream pipelines.
Okay. So the Nord Stream pipeline, I think, was sabotaged earlier in the war, but there have been some attacks against Russian energy, like depots or inside Russia. And I think that the Ukrainians are doing that using drones or I don't know if they have people on the ground inside Russia.
Mm.
But yes, the Nord Stream pipeline was sabotaged. The Americans believe that the Russians blew it up. I know that there's this narrative out there that the Americans did it. I don't quite see why that would be in the interests of the United States to do that. But there are only a few countries that could have really blown up the Nord Stream pipeline, because only a few countries have the submarine capacity, the deep water capacity to really get at a pipeline like that. So that's one of the
So this was just to clarify, this was the attack that happened last year, but new intelligence being reviewed by US officials suggests that a pro-Ukrainian group might have been behind actually carrying it out. So not, I'll send you this link, but not the government directly.
Oh, wow.
And of course, they have no indication that the Russians, although that might have been an early theory, that the Russians actually did it themselves. But they said that this was considered a very brazen attack on the natural gas pipelines, which link Russia to Western Europe.
Interesting.
So,
yes. Wow. Yeah, I didn't see that, Sandy. So thank you so much for telling me, because that does really, that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, adds a whole new element to it, because you've got these private forces who might have access to, some sort of military submarines or whatever. And the fact that they are choosing sides and they're getting involved in this, I think says a lot as well. So let's take a few comments. The good doctor has to leave at 8:30 sharp, and then we're going to have our next guest in the studio. But Damien has some very strong viewpoints on this. And I'll read a few of his comments because he's been feverish in the comment section this morning. He says, why does the US have paid Taliban fighters in Ukraine? So is there any evidence that the US is sending paid anybody into Ukraine, even American fighters versus Taliban fighters?
No, I've seen no evidence of that, Damien, so I can't speak to that.
Right. He also says that Ukraine is being used as a proxy war to weaken Russia by the US. It's also about money and military corporations. So blaming the Americans for this war, I don't understand that, because Russia started the war.
Yeah, Russia started the war, and so the idea that Ukraine is a proxy and that that the United States wants to weaken Russia, this is a narrative that the Russian government has been repeating over and over. The US really has, Russia was weak even going into this war, and the war has weakened Russia even further. I mean, those of us who love Russia and have dear Russian friends and care deeply about the country, I mean, we are horrified at the catastrophe that has befallen the country because of this war. Not just, Ukraine, it's obvious that how catastrophic the war has been for Ukraine, but for Russia as well. It has set the country back at least a decade, and it will be really hard to recover economically and in so many ways. So Putin initiated this war. It was a war of choice. He weakened Russia, and that's how I view it. In terms of money and military corporations, that is a subject that I don't know that subject well, but I will say that speaking with military officials recently, they told me that they're helping Ukraine by depleting our own stockpiles. So, we kind of have to think of our own defense, because we're moving things around, from one area into Ukraine. So, some of the criticism of American support of Ukraine has been, Russia's not as big a threat as China, and we're moving resources from the Indo-Pacific to Europe. And so I think it's more complicated than it appears, as just kind of being driven by the military-industrial complex.
Yeah. Seems like he's been reading a lot of pro-Russian news here. He also says China is next, as the U.S. wants to remain the superpower in the world, no matter what it costs money or life. And you've just said that doesn't make any sense, because, in fact, they are really weakening their own position in that part of the world.
Yeah, totally. And China is actually, one of the arguments for maintaining a strong defense of Ukraine is to deter China from invading Taiwan. China is a very strong country. The United States does, I don't really know that the United States wants to control the world. I don't think Americans really want that either. I think so. Yeah. So I'm a little dubious of that argument.
All right, we have a question here. It's me says, isn't China allegedly helping Putin as well? How much help is he getting from China?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think he's definitely getting some help from China. It's hard to know because China will say things but never criticize Putin for the invasion. So China will come out with a statement that we need to protect sovereign borders, and which is exactly what Putin did not do. He violated sovereign borders, and so on and so forth, but never criticize Putin. So China's kind of playing this role of, and I heard that they're trying to come out with a peace proposal too, which actually they probably know Putin will reject and the West will reject, but at least it makes them look like, they're trying to end this war. They want this war to end. There's no question that China does not want this war to continue. They don't like this sanctions environment that's kind of inhibited their economy as well. They're not happy with Putin. I think when Putin went to China, it was really clear. The Chinese were really clear about how annoyed they were by this entire escapade of Putin. So, but I think there's been some suggestion that China would support Putin militarily and in this overt way. I don't see that happening. I think the cost to China would be too great. They still want to maintain good business ties with the United States and the European Union.
All right. Aliano says we're going to be wrapping up in just a few minutes here. What's up with all of the oligarchs dying overseas, over in Russia, sorry. And I doubt they have the money to go through prolonged economic sanctions. So there have been a number of very mysterious deaths from people who are connected to Russia.
Right.
And it's been raising a lot of eyebrows. What do we know about that situation?
Right. So I think it's, so people have different theories about this. Some say this is Putin going after people who have opposed him, which we know he's done. I mean, there's a long history of Putin poisoning opponents and assassinating opponents. So it's not like that would be crazy or far-fetched, But another theory, which I think is just as probable, but just as likely, is that the war has created this kind of space for different segments of society who are vying for power to go at each other. So it might be a kind of gang warfare where different groups are, they don't have Putin's distracted by the war, the security services are distracted by the war, and they can kind of, this vigilante justice has taken over. So it could be a bunch of different things. Not necessarily Kremlin driven, but driven by the vacuum, the power vacuum that has enabled different business interests and different security interests to settle scores and deal with their enemies.
So very, very interesting. Moya says it's time the U.S. puts some more advanced military weapons into Ukraine hands. It's time to get an end to this war. It's putting strain on everyone's economy. What has been the impact for all of us all over the world? I mean,
yeah, I actually agree with Moya on this. I think that it would be. I think that we've gone a little. I think that we need to just kind of help them finish the job quickly. So and there are people who have talked about this in. globally, Africa, for example, relies on Ukraine a lot for grain, and the cost of grain has gone up so much. Wealthier countries can still buy grain, but poorer countries have a harder time. So this is affecting food security. It's affecting the global economy. So I do agree with Moya's. And I very much advocate that approach as well. It needs to end.
So does that mean then the Americans going in directly as opposed to just giving monetary assistance for them to try to source weapons? I think that's where most of the help thus far has been coming.
I don't think we need to put boots on the ground, but I think air support and, really kind of, just the fact that the Russians are still able to destroy apartment buildings at will and bomb, the electricity grid and pollute the water supply. I mean, these kinds, there must be some defensive weapons that we can supply that would help the Ukrainians.
And of course, all of those attacks are on the citizens. That's not military attacks.
No, exactly, Sandy. I mean, that's what's so disturbing is that it's, this is total war. The Kremlin has not gone after, military installations. So when people say that, Russia's defending itself against NATO, there's so much evidence against that, and the main evidence is that the targets have been predominantly civilians, and that they're trying to seize territory, deporting populations, and deny Ukrainian statehood, and, they're carrying out a genocidal war of destruction. So that's not that's not the way a country acts in its defense.
Exactly. That's an aggressor. And so Tracy was sharing that Russian orphanages are overflowing, and the adoption of Ukrainian kids. New Zealand adopted heaps of Russian babies, cost thousands, then closed doors on New Zealand. Or is that right? And then closed doors in New Zealand, kept them in orphanages to live and then pass on. I'm not quite sure I get that.
Yeah, just quickly, because I have to go just quickly on orphanages. There have been documented cases of Russian children being, Ukrainian children being moved to Russia. Some of their parents were told, oh, they're just going on a summer camp and we'll return them, and then they never hear from their kids. And then they get adopted, or, so we've had a few cases of children who have been reunited somehow miraculously with their parents. But this kidnapping of Ukrainian children and raising them Russian, it violates the UN Genocide Convention, frankly.
And it sounds a lot like what happened in World War II.
Absolutely.
With the Jews. I mean, total annihilation of an entire people. You talked about changing history books, trying to annihilate their language. I mean, these are the things that you do when you're trying to erase people from the face of the earth. And that's just crazy that here we are in 2023, that's still possible. That's why we fought World War II, folks.
It's so true. It's so true. And you hear it in Putin's speeches. His speeches say it, and the propagandists on Russian television talk about this. Yeah, Ukraine is not a country. It shouldn't be a country. It belongs to Russia. Ukrainians are not really that's not a distinct ethnicity. It's not and there's such a long history with that, Sandy, too. I mean, it goes back to the czars, really, who denied, who banned the Ukrainian language for a time. So.
Wow. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on the program. As always, you're such a wealth of information, and you just make it easier to understand a little bit about what's happening. I don't think any of us have a real concept of the amount of destruction and damage that this war has caused now over 12 months. Any predictions on how much longer? I mean, I know you probably hate to say it because it seems like it's dragging on. But
so what I have heard people say is that it could be another year. It might end by the end of the year. Wars end when both parties believe that they just they have to negotiate. I mean, all wars end in negotiation, but right now the Ukrainians think they can win and the Russians think they can win. And so there's no incentive on either side to sit down. So hopefully by the end of the year, that's what I'm hoping for.
Unbelievable. Thank you, Doctor. And say hello to your cat for us.
Okay.
There's quite a few people in the comment section. One person said, whose cat? It's driving my dog crazy. Soka said she's on the train in Miami listening to the show, and she heard this cat and she was looking around to see if there was a cat on the train with her. So
yeah, next time, Sandy. Yeah, I'll make sure next time he's not in my room. I thought sometimes he's great and he just falls asleep and he's totally great. And then other times.
He's now famous. He's now famous.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Really appreciate it. Have a good one.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
So again, folks, that was Dr. Golfo Alexopoulos. That's a mouthful. She is the professor and director of the USF Institute for Russian, European, and Eurasian Studies at the University of South Florida. Really an extremely knowledgeable person. We're so grateful to have... Alexa, stop. Oh, you know what? Because her first name is, I said Alexopoulos, and this thing thought I said Alexa. All right. So she's an amazing wealth of information. PhD from University of Chicago, 1996, Yale University, 1988. And she has been teaching courses related to contemporary Russian politics and society, modern Europe, and the Soviet Union for many, many years. Undergraduate and graduate courses that focus on conflict in the world, comparative dictatorship and authoritarianism, and the problems of war and revolution, as well as genocide and human rights. There's a lot to unpack, folks. And, at the end of the day, we bring these experts on. Thanks, by the way, to Kevin, he works at USF, and he has an amazing access to a lot of these professionals. Folks, we bring them on because this is what they do for a living. They have studied for 30 years, European studies, Russian, So I know everybody in the comment section, you guys believe that you're the experts and you have an opinion and you've been reading all kind of propaganda, and a lot of you are picking sides, but we like to bring people on who actually are the professionals, who've made it their life study. So you guys are experts in everything. You're experts in COVID, you're experts in marijuana, you're experts in Russian affairs and the Ukraine war. Like, you have so many PhDs all over the place. I'm always quite impressed. I'm being facetious here. Pay attention now. So yes, y'all are something else, honey, chill. But we're going to switch gears here this morning. You've got to be willing to accept that you can read all the propaganda in the world that you want, but Russia started this war, and what they have done to the people of Ukraine has been absolutely horrific and, just disgusting. So Jonathan says, you think you're an expert too. Actually, no, I don't. That's why I bring experts on the show, because they're the experts. And that's why I ask them the questions. And the things that I'm reading, I'm saying, is this really what the position is? If I thought I was an expert, I'd never bring an expert on the program, but thanks for your opinion. So listen, we've got a guest now who is coming up. And I want to go ahead and say that, give me 1 second here. I'm going to set some ground rules for the next part of this discussion, because ultimately, folks, this is a very, very difficult situation as it relates to, sexual assault. Now, we covered this case extensively. So this is the case of DJ Renato Harris. The victim in that case has decided to come on the program today. This, I think, is probably a momentous occasion in the sense that we've never had a rape victim appear on the show as a guest. We've had people call in who said that they have been assaulted. I know the last time we talked about this, we had a woman called in, said that, at the hands of her husband, she was assaulted. And, people are getting more comfortable actually having this level of discourse. And I think it's a very, very important conversation that we open up and we have. But this has to be now a safe place for individuals to come on the program who are victims. And I cannot tell you in my mind what it must be taking for her to even agree to this. She's come forward. She said, yes, I will do it. I don't personally know this young lady, but she appears to be a very strong young lady for all that she's endured and all that she's been through. To be able to come on the program and even talk about any element of this, to me, is amazing. She's going to talk about her advocacy work. And so I want to caution you all, especially in the comment section, to really try to be as respectful as possible. I'm not going to turn the comment section off because, I believe in free speech, but free speech up to a point, because I don't want to traumatize this young lady any further. I mentioned on yesterday's program that every time she, hears anything reported about her case, this is without a doubt a reliving of those events all over again. So if you have a question for her, I want you to ask the question respectfully. If you have an opinion, you need to be respectful in the way that you deliver that opinion. And I think that that's all I can say. I don't want to have to block any of you today. So please, folks, try to be on your best possible behavior. Johan has a comment. He says, the victim coming in CMR, this is a brave, in capital letters, woman. And this is, folks, International Women's Day. And so she has picked this day purposely because this is a day that we are celebrating women around the world, and with a view, quite frankly, to showing our strength. But every time we talk about something like International Women's Day, we have to admit that, my God, we have a long way. We've come a long way, but we've still got a long way to go when it comes to women's rights. And so, of course, in that vein, I do want to wish all of you a happy International Women's Day, which is being celebrated around the world today. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pull you into the studio, young lady. Derin, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. First of all, this is my first time. I know we've been talking on WhatsApp and stuff, and I don't think we've never even had a phone conversation, right?
No, just voice notes.
Yeah. So thank you so much for agreeing to come on the program today. I think you're an amazing person. Like, I can't say it enough, because this is, for me, a historical moment in the Cayman Islands. It's a momentous occasion, and we're going to celebrate you here today and hopefully give you, a comfortable place to be able to share your story.
Thank you for having me. And I want to just send explicit gratitude towards you, because I actually reached out to you. One of my very good friends that lives, this Caymanian, he lives on island, was sending me various media posts. And I think I dropped in one of the sessions for when you were, I'm going to refer to him as this person.
Yes.
I still don't feel comfortable just speaking certain people's names out loud. So for the audience, I'm just going to say this person or this man or this individual. And I reached out to you because I do advocacy work now, and I know how brave it is to stand so boldly against an uncomfortable and definitely an unpopular opinion. And you have faced a lot of vitriol, and so has your family, and my heart goes out to you and your family. You definitely do not deserve that. But yes, I reached out to you and we started communicating, and then the request to come on the show came up, and it took a lot of thought.
Yes.
I had to talk to people just to make sure this was the right next step. But so far, I'm very happy that I took this leap of faith, and I'm here with you all this morning.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I sat through a lot of the trial, and I actually missed the day because you came on pretty early. So I did miss the day that you gave your evidence, but from the cross-examination and the examination in chief and everything else, I was able to get a lot of what you said and what happened to you. I don't even know where to begin. I mean, I'm feeling emotional about this. I can only imagine how you must feel. But let's talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about how this happened, right? So you were living in the Cayman Islands. You were a student here, and up to that point, your life was like most students, just, going to class, socializing, going out on occasion. You had met this person several times before.
So I remember meeting him explicitly, that we had a conversation with each other in February of 2018. The assault happened in July of 2018. And he introduced himself as, a local DJ, a promoter. Mind you, when I met this individual, I was 23 years old. So I'm 28 now, but yeah, just looking back, I was like, oh wow, I thought I was grown there, but I was like, I was a young person. So we exchanged information, and we only message each other for him to tell me this event is happening, come to this event, and I'll be like, yes, no, I'm not available, I'm busy. So that was the extent of our communication and the rapport we had with each other, which is like a basic like promoter DJ person relationship.
Yeah. So this wasn't someone that you were hanging out with. You were not friends with him. You'd never gone to dinner with him or any of that stuff.
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah. Because he tried to kind of push this narrative in court that, of course, you wanted to be in a relationship with him, but that definitely was not the case.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Yeah. All right. So are you comfortable talking a little bit about the actual night in question?
Yeah.
And again, I haven't prepped, just for the benefit of our listeners. I don't, prepare questions in advance or anything. So I like a conversation, an interview, to be very, very organic, but I do want to ask her permission with certain things today. Because I know, what this, I can only imagine. I don't know. I can only imagine what this could be like here today. So let me know. That day, was it a Friday or Saturday night? I'm trying to remember.
It was a Friday, because obviously for many reasons, I'll never forget that day, but it was actually the end of, in medical school, we do block exams. So every block, basically every quarter of a semester, we do exams. So that was the end of our block 3 exam. So we write exams all day, literally like 8 p.m. to like the afternoon, like 2 or 3 exams back to back. So usually after those block exams, me and my, fellow students and peers, we want to go out and have fun, because we literally spend a lot, lockdown studying in class, very stressful. So, we went out and to have fun. We started out at the beach, and we're like, oh, let's go out to the bars and stuff. So I went out with my, also, I don't know if I should say the name of the school, but a medical school on Cayman Islands, classmates. We all went out because those were essentially my friends, because I've made Caymanian friends throughout my time, but those are the people I spend 95% of my time around. So we went out, we began in Obar. I don't know if Obar is still in existence.
Yeah, I don't know if it's still Obar, but I think it's something that's there in that building. Yeah.
Yeah. That vicinity, actually, sorry, Borello's. I don't know if I think that's further down West Bay Road, but we started out there. So we were there having fun, drinking, all of that kind of stuff. And then we moved to Obar. So that was the second location. So I had gone out with 5, including me. So 4 other female classmates of us. So we all jumped in the same car. We took the same car to Borello's where we began, jumped in the same car to Obar. So we were all moving together as essentially a girl group. Mind you,
and then that's what, just for the record, that's what you're told to do. I've been that age. I was in university. I was always the designated driver though, because I don't actually drink. But you try to stay together as women as much as you can and be on the lookout for each other. and you travel as a group. I mean, they tell you do this to try to be safe. So that sounds like you guys were having just a regular university night out, really.
Yes, very regular in what I thought, in my opinion. So we all in the same car. We arrived at O-Bar, and I believe I was the first one to get out first. So I began drinking at Borello's, and because I've been studying all day, doing exams all day, I'm very sure like my belly wasn't full. You know, drinking at Borello's, drive at O-Bar, get out of the car first, and the girls looked like they were getting in the car too. So I was walking ahead because I just wanted to be very honest with everybody, and I'm reconciling with this and not trying to shame and blame myself. I just wanted to have fun after very stressful time in school. So I walked in, I believe my female friends at the time were behind me, and we walk into O-Bar, and I remember O-Bar being super crowded, like packed like sardines. So I was like, oh, maybe they're really behind. Maybe they're at the door, you know, checking your ID, you know, that whole process of entering a club. So I'll just like wait. And I was like waiting, meandering, walk back to the door, didn't see my friend. Now I'm texting them, texting them, all of them, mind you, 4 other women, no response. So in that process of texting them, that's when I ran into him. And I said, you know, I'm looking for friends, can't find my friends. And then at first he helped me kind of in the search effort to look for my friends. And, you know, we went to the bar, and I'm not too clear the sequence of events after this. So I apologize for any kind of like time lapse.
No, that's okay.
So I remember him buying me like 2, like just straight Hennessy glasses. 2, and I already started drinking there. With the 2 Hennessy, I was gone. In the process of that, I remember again.
Let me ask you a question about that. If I can just pause you for a quick second. As I listened to the story before and in court, I have a suspicion that you were drugged that night. Do you think you were drugged that night? I mean, like I said, I don't personally drink. And I know you were saying, you know, you didn't eat, so there would have been other things that contributed to the degree of possible intoxication. But I feel like you might have been slipped something. Do you ever feel that way?
Over the last 4, almost 5 years at this point, I've had that thought. Initially after it happened, obviously at various points throughout the years. I cannot tell you definitively if I was or wasn't. All I can tell you is that I became not incoherent, beyond intoxication into incapacitation. That's I was able to, you know, walk my own feet, but I do not have a memory past a certain point. Like it's completely stops, like a whole black curtain comes down. So yeah, so to answer that question, I could not tell you yes or no definitively. Obviously for any proof of such thing, the time has long passed to determine that. But I definitely had my feelings about whether that was a possibility in this scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you were at the bar. He bought you 2 Hennessy drinks. And how much had you had before that? What were you drinking? Because I think there was a mixing of drinks and stuff as well.
Yes, I definitely leaned towards tequila. So when at Borello's, where we first started off, I was definitely taking shots, probably to the 4 or 5 different shots of tequila prior to arriving in Borello's, where it was 2 cups of Hennessy. And this is just Hennessy, not Hennessy and Coke or Hennessy and Red Bull. It was just like
it's a straight
of Hennessy. Then I remember leaving the club with him. Before I arrived at that point, so I texted one of my friends, quotation marks, got back to me, and she said, "Oh, we're at home. We're in our beds and we're asleep." And mind you, probably a duration of 20 plus minutes had passed. So they had texted me back and said, we're at home, comfortable in our beds, asleep or about to sleep.
Yeah.
That I have my own feelings and about that, but I guess that's not about.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, in a way, they just abandoned you and what should have been a girls' night out.
Yes.
And I want to say that, you know, you don't necessarily have to speak to this about your friends, as you say, but this is one of the things, women, if you go out in a group, you've got to stick with, it's like girl code, right? If you say, okay, let's go out together, I'm the designated driver, I can't then be like, oh, I'm the designated driver, but I'm going to start drinking or whatever, right? You've got to, and I know that sometimes it's difficult. Young people are not always thinking about the dangers that they're putting themselves or their friends in. But, you know, have a plan before you go out, but you've got to more importantly stick to that plan once you're there. Because so many things can happen in the course of an evening, right? So, yeah.
I remember even in that state, a lot of feelings came up around that because I was brought up with the same way. Sisterhood, your sister's keeper. Even if I see a random girl on the streets or at the club and she looks by herself or something's off, I always check in or make sure, you know, the appropriate people around. So that's just how I've been brought up and what I know to do. So I had a lot of feelings about that, but, you know, at the forefront, I guess, of my drunken mind, I, you know, it's kind of like, F them now, I want to have fun. And I overestimated how much clearly I could trust him with my safety and my well-being, especially in that state. But I was not thinking for a lot of reasons. Partially, a lot of it was the alcohol. I couldn't make rational decisions, and a lot of things was like, you know, like, I want to have fun. My friends just abandoned me, like, you know, different thoughts. Let me just go. So we left Old Bar together and we ended to Burger Shack. So that would have been like literally not too far from Old Bar. I think maybe less than a 2-minute drive down to Burger Shack, the location of Old Bar. And
you didn't have a car. So to be clear, I mean, not that you'd be driving after having a couple of Hennessy's, but you didn't have a car. And so he had a car. Had he been drinking as well?
Yeah, we were drinking together. Because I remember we got drink, because his whole thing, I slightly remember things like, you know, he's posturing and saying, you know, I know this person, I can get us free drinks. So that whole like kind of posturing, and you know, he also consumed alcohol as well that evening.
Yeah. And that was one of the things, just to pause a little bit here, that actually came out in the trial, is that he fancies himself to really be someone of importance. I mean, he said that, like, I'm a well-known DJ and all the girls want me, and, you know, like this attitude, right? Which I know ultimately didn't sit well with the judge. I mean, I don't know how much of the trial you watched post your testimony, but at one point the prosecution said to him, she was asking a series of questions about how he sees himself in this community. And he was very much like, she asked him direct questions. Oh, so you're like a celebrity? He's like, yeah. And I was like, first thing I was like in court going, WTF? Like, really? You're not a celebrity, dude. You're a friggin' DJ. But yeah, in his mind, he's a celebrity. And so with that celebrity status comes this sense of entitlement, and that all the girls want me kind of thing. And, you know, I think he probably shouldn't have answered the questions in the way that he did. But he was, I guess, at least at that point, being honest about how he saw himself. So you decide to go get some food because now you're feeling like you need something to kind of soak up the alcohol.
Yeah, I needed something to, take some of that drunkenness off. So we arrive at a Burger Shack together. So he did purchase me a meal. I cannot tell you what, a burger and fries, just to say that. And we're in the vehicle together, and this part is an interesting part, and also something I had to reconcile with, is that we did have a kiss in the vehicle. And I know a lot of people will have opinions about that. And I have definitely shamed myself more than probably anybody can, but we did exchange a kiss in the car. And that was for me from a point of, you know, I was drunk. I wasn't thinking.
Yeah.
But I didn't want anything. It wasn't like a long makeout. It was literally like a kiss, probably like under 3 seconds type of thing.
Yeah. And let me just say this as well, right? Because I hear you when you say you have probably been your own worst critic. And I think a lot of people don't get this. And sometimes when I see people in the comment section defending rapists and talking about, well, this person must have had an agenda, whatever, they don't understand that the victim will always question, I could have done this differently. I shouldn't have kissed him. I shouldn't have taken 2 drinks from him. I shouldn't have, you know, when I found out my friends had left, I should have, you know, like there's so many things I'm sure over the years that you have replayed in your head, blaming yourself. So no one can blame you more than you probably beat up and blamed yourself. And I just want to make that point because I think a lot of times people just do not understand the damage that they're making, even in terms of the comments and stuff that they make about assault victims.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's, yeah, you blame yourself. You play every interaction, every scenario, even down to like, oh, should I even have allowed this man to have my number to communicate with me in any regard? So it didn't leave up to that point. The moment my friends had texted me, I should have taken myself home. Why did I continue to stay? You know, why did I look at this person that I've had very limited communication with, let alone in-person physical interaction with, and trusted him in such a highly vulnerable and pretentious and again, that kiss, it happened. I never denied it from the first time I reported it to the police till now. I never did, but my intention was never to have any sexual relations or any intercourse or anything with the him, that I was just drunk.
Yeah. And I want to say too that one of the things that the prosecution highlighted, which I think is a very, very fair point, your story has always been consistent, and you've always told the truth. So one important way to sort of test that is there were things that didn't put you in a good light, like saying, yes, I did kiss him. You were the one who admitted that to the police, and you said that from the initial report, right? So anything that you did that night that you could recall, you were upfront about, even if it was something that didn't necessarily make you look good. Because a lot of victims would be like, oh my God, I'm not going to share that because then that makes it look like maybe I wanted it, or I'm not going to say, and they might leave out parts of the story. You didn't do that. You were just completely honest with what you could remember and what you said transpired, right?
Yeah. And I'm not gonna lie, those thoughts definitely went through my mind. Like, I understand, even before I got into this, had my experience, I knew what it was like as a woman for women who dare to speak up or say anything. And I knew the level of scrutiny that exists. So I knew whether it be the court of law or the court of public opinion, was gonna come. From every direction. So yeah. So next thing that I remember is that, and this one, I know he contested it, but it just rings in my ears that I can never forget it. That I remember him like answering a phone call, and then he was saying something about his son. And mind you, we're probably 2 or 3 a.m., something that whereabouts in the morning. Like, it's very late. And he got a call. I don't remember, he said it was from his son directly, or one of the mother of his children. I don't know what it was, that he had to go home right away. He was making it seem like very urgent and X, Y, and Z check up on his son or something to that regard. Because again, something that I wasn't thinking straight. Why would I want to go to hell of all places with this man in the state? Because I was like, I want to go to hell. I want to go down West Bay and go to hell again. Not thinking. got this call from something about his son. There was urgency, and it made it like I thought it was like a child, or even if his son, and he had to go home immediately to do whatever with his son or check up on his son. And because of the level of urgency he presented it with, I did not question it, because a child is involved, and anytime a parent picks up a call with that urgency, I'm not going to be like, oh no, don't check up on your son. So instead of going west down West Bay Road, we go, I guess, east into Georgetown. And I could not tell you, even till today, if you showed me on a map where exactly I was, I could not tell you. I just knew we were driving towards Georgetown. So he arrives at his place. I'm still in the vehicle at this point. He said, I'll quickly go and check my son. I'll come back out, and then we'll go to hell. So I waited and waited in the car. And I don't remember exactly what was said. That, again, I used my own 2 feet. I wasn't forced out of the vehicle to enter that home. And I just remember entering the home, like standing by the door, the exit. And then I remember just a set of stairs, like looking up the stairs, and it was black, right? Like, you know, and then after that, I don't remember. I don't remember physically walking up the stairs. I don't remember, like, I just remember I walked in, it was pitch black. I saw like lights coming from like one central source, like so I could tell there were stairs. And then after that, memory was gone.
You remember nothing after that?
I don't remember.
Wow. And you actually left I found it was interesting that you left your phone in the car, because most people are attached to their phone, and sort of any movements that they're making, they're taking their phone. So to me, that was an indication that you left your phone in the car, that you didn't intend to go in this man's house and spend any amount of time. You're like, okay, I'm going to go stand here. He's going to do whatever. And I'm going to go right back to my phone and my car, and I mean, his car and my phone, your handbag. Did you have a handbag that night?
I believe I did, because I would have had ID, but I always remember one thing I remember strongly was my phone, because the next morning, when I woke up and came to, and after the events of the morning after, one of my first things is like, I saw my clothes, but I was like, where's my phone? Because again, I am someone of a particular generation. I am attached like to my phone. Like I probably never lost the phone, probably like one time in middle school when I was super young. I've never lost a cell phone after that. So I woke up the next day and then discovered that my phone was dead inside his car. And I probably my purse, and I can't recall with great accuracy. I'm going to be honest with that, but I would also believe that my purse and ID and all those other things, if I had left my phone, I wouldn't have been everything else and left the phone.
So your next recollection then, after seeing those stairs and then everything going blank, is when? In the morning?
In the morning. So, and I guess trigger warning for the folks that are listening. So I wake up, and I remember I woke up and I was facing a window, and I was like, the daylight had come in. So the sun had risen. It was bright outside. I'm looking out the window. I was like, this is not the orientation of my room. I don't have a window that faces my bed. And I looked at the bed sheet. I was like, this is not my bed sheet. And I was like, why am I naked? Like, I went through so many levels of thought, and I turned over and I see him laying beside me, also naked. And then I distinctly remember wetness in between my legs. And that kind of, when I kind of put 2 and 2 together, I jolted up. It was like I was shocked a lot, because I was a little groggy. I was like, what's going on? And then when I put all the pieces together, I realized what had happened, and I jolted up, and essentially that woke him up. And I just said, you know what, just take me home. Because at this point, I don't like I recognized him. I didn't recognize where I was, but I put 2 again. I was like, this is probably his home. And something happened the night prior. And at this point, just take me home. And he didn't want to take me home. So he proceeded to, because where I was, it was him, the door and the bed was pushed up against the wall. So I was barricaded with him, like
and then up against the wall.
And up against the wall. So I essentially, and I know this was brought up in court, why didn't you climb down this side of the bed and go like this, all of that. And my mind wasn't going to like, what's the best strategic way of exiting?
Yeah, you're expecting him to just move so you can get up.
Yeah, move, I can get out. And I see my clothes in the corner over there. So I'm like, just let me go and just take me home. And he proceeds to push me back on the bed. Like literally I'm trying to now get over him, like physically get over him. And then he uses his force and pushes me down like this. And then proceeds to assault me. And I was kicking, screaming, telling him to stop, don't do this. And then after a while, I think my mind and my body realized that you're stuck. There's nothing that you can physically do, because now he had I remember him holding me down like this. So he had his full force restraining me. Wow. And then after a while, I just remember my body and my mind just going numb. Yeah, just numb. And it felt like I was having like I dissociated a little bit, like a little bit of an outer body experience. I knew what was happening, but I realized that I kicked, screamed, told him to stop, begged, pleaded. He's gonna do whatever he wants to do. So what is the most, I guess, is like, how do you make this less risky for yourself? Like, how just try to get out like alive,
right?
At this point.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, because at this point, he is forcibly raping you. You have no memory of the first assault, but obviously at this point, you don't know what he's capable of. Because if he's capable of restraining you with force and ignoring your kicks and your demands for him to stop and your pleads for him to stop, in your mind, you're probably thinking, what else might he do to me today?
Yeah. Yeah. And some people might, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm on social media. I've been seeing the type of commentary that have been coming from people and, an assessment of his good character. But when you're in that situation and someone, despite, you basically fighting for your life, takes what they want and how much they want of you, you don't know what is the next thing that can come from this.
Right.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, my body, my mind went numb. It felt like I was like a rag doll at that point. And I was trying to just like, okay, let me just get out of this intact, if that makes sense. So he finishes and he proceeds to ejaculate on his hand, because after the first assault, because I told him, I was like, you not only had raped me, but you did not use condoms. And then I guess his response to that was, him ejaculating.
Do you remember if you used the word rape when you were talking to him about the first incident the night before? Because I know it was brought up about how you were concerned that he didn't use protection, which to him apparently is not a big deal. But do you remember if you actually used the term rape?
I believe I did, because I remember us clearly having a dialogue. Is like, why are you trying to make me look like a monster? I'm not a monster.
So even after all of that, he turns around and rapes you a second time. Oh my God.
Yeah. He's like, why are you trying to make me feel and look like a monster? Why you because that was a conversation from after the second assault to essentially when he dropped me back home. Why are you making me feel I'm not a monster? All of that kind of stuff. So yeah, he ejaculated in his hand. I was like, basically, like, here, are you happy now?
I must tell you, when that evidence came out, everything about this is egregious and disgusting. But that comment, like, you rape someone and then you're like, you ejaculate in your hand, you go, here you go. Are you happy now? Like, I don't even know. I mean, nobody knows how they would respond. And I mean, nobody knows how they would respond in a situation like this. You know, those of us who are fighters, you think that you're going to fight, but you don't know, because like you said, in your mind now, you're like, what if he tries to kill me? Like, fighting is not always the best thing to do. Like, sometimes you have to use your head and know how to kind of ease out of a situation so that you can get out of it alive. And there were tons of instances all over the world where women are smart enough to try to make a connection with their rapists, their abusers, whatever. And that's exactly what kept them alive. And had they fought, you know, they would have been hurt worse, or they would have been killed or whatever. So sometimes you just got to assess the situation as you're in it. But I have thought about that moment when it came out in evidence, and I felt like I probably would have tried to kick him in the friggin' nuts, like in that moment, like right then and there if I could. But, you know, I understand the predicament of, number one, never judge, because you've never been there. You've never been in that situation. And, but when he said that to you, what were you thinking? I mean, I would have been so, like you said, you, at that point, you were kind of having this out of body experience. Was any of it really sinking in, like what he just said to you?
It was all sinking in like the Titanic.
Oh my God.
It was, I mean, there was a lot of violations on so many levels, but that was like the nail in the coffin of the extent of disregard for my humanity that he has. And he thinks this is, I mean, I don't put it past a rapist to think like, you know, like, oh, I did something like wrong, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But it was a grotesque response and made me feel like less than dirt. It made me feel subhuman, like I was literally, and I don't know what kind of language I can use like this, but like I was a cum rag, a place for someone to just use and abuse. And yeah, I've never been treated like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm seeing some of your comments, folks, and I'm not really reading comments right now because I understand how difficult this is for Derin. So I want her to get through the substantive story, and then we'll open it up to questions. But Janetta's asking if this so-called DJ served time. So to be very clear, this is DJ Renato Harris. He has been convicted. He was found guilty by a judge, and he has been sentenced to 16 and a half years. So this is the recent case that we covered. And I know a lot of people had an opinion one way or the other. So this now is the young lady. And I was so upset, Derin, that a lot of people were like, oh, this is some white woman who's up against this black man and has an agenda. And here you are, a beautiful sister. And to me, it shouldn't matter what color you were. But some people seemed comfortable and okay with it if you had been a white woman. And to me, that's really disgusting. And I can't wrap my head around that, you know, but let's leave that alone for a second, because we'll get to talking a little bit about rape culture, because now Derin is an advocate for other victims. So this incident happens to you. He rapes you a second time. And then what happens at that point? He ejaculates in his hand, says, "There, are you happy?" And then what happens after that?
Because of the events of the following, or the first rape, I knew that he ejaculated in me. And he essentially, because I didn't know what I was, and I know this was brought up in court, his defense was, why didn't you just run out the road and start screaming like bloody murder? And why did you choose to get back in the vehicle with him to take you to the pharmacy to get Plan B emergency contraception, and then subsequently take you home? And I said, like, it's one, like, at that point, I look like I had been through it, not just like, you know, goes on from the other night, but I was in such like, I don't, like, the shame would not allow me to now run out into the road, residential area, and start screaming bloody murder, because like, I don't even know how to answer that question, to be very frank.
I mean, people have, to me, it's weird. that people have an expectation of what they think victims will do. I mean, I think if you've never been a victim, you really shouldn't judge the situation because, you know, not of sexual assault, but even things in general. Like I've been in situations where I thought, oh my God, I'm going to react this way and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it never happens. Like you don't react the way that you think you're going to react in just normal stresses when you're under stress, when you're under fight or flight or whatever. To me, it doesn't make any logical sense that you would just run out in the middle of the street, you know, naked saying what, somebody help me, you don't know where you are, you don't know, you know, like I couldn't quite understand why people would have thought that that was even, of course his defense was pulling at straws, right? So none of what he really said made any sense to me, but he was trying any and everything to try to be like, oh well, if somebody just raped you, wouldn't you be doing this? And it's like, no, in fact you probably wouldn't be running out in the street screaming down the place. You're just thinking, how do I now get out of this situation and get back to the safety of my own place?
Yes. And that was a forefront of my mind. Again, in that process of him assaulting me the second time, at first, before he started saying, you think I'm a monster, all that kind of stuff, he was thinking this was the most enticing sexual experience that he had. Like he was some, I don't know, mandingo, that I don't want to be so crass this early morning, that really laid it down. And he noticed, because when he was done, I remember rolling over and just in fetal position, like sobbing. And he was just like, you know, like I think in his mind, he's like, I did something. And then after he noticed, like I'm sobbing in fetal position, just inconsolable. It's like, why are you trying to make me a monster? Why are you trying to make me a monster? And, you know, all that process, you're restraining me, holding me down, me kicking, screaming, and me essentially going numb and just being unreactive, lying there like a dead body, just hoping this ends. I just want this thing to end. And I can tell he took a lot of joy and satisfaction in raping me. So that happened. And then I was like, I was crying. And then I was like, I need to go home. Just take me home. And then he Googled on his phone, I believe, the time where the next pharmacy opened, I believe was 8 or 9 p.m. or 9 a.m. So that was the earliest pharmacy opening time to get emergency contraception. Because again, I was like, just take me home. I just need to take, in Canada, we call it a plan B, but emergency the morning after pill. Because I know ejaculating, and he said he ejaculated in me. Like that wasn't a qualm for him. So in that, I wanted to go to the bathroom to wash as much of him off as me. And then again, another conversation that comes up, like, you know, you shouldn't take a bath, you shouldn't wash yourself, you know, you should have gone to the hospital and done a rape kit or something like that. Again, I just want to not be, I want to be home. I want to not be with this individual. I go to the hospital, you know, make sure you don't take a shower so they can get all of the forensic evidence. My thing is like, I want to go home. So I went to the bathroom, and mind you, the night before, he was saying something about his son, and it was a pretty small living space. There was 2 stories, but it was pretty small that I can see if there was any other human being in that place. Mind you, for when this was happening, I guess this was the master bedroom of the primary bedroom this happened in. The door was open. Because he was saying the night prior something about his son. And when I walked to the bathroom, I saw another bedroom. There was only one other bedroom I saw, and the door was open. The lights were off, but I didn't see any indication of anybody else, especially a son, being in that place. And went to the bathroom, could not use the bathroom. It was his whole living environment was absolutely disgusting, but that bathroom was a level of disgusting I have not personally seen in a long time. So I just took toilet paper and tried to do what I could. And then it was time. And then he took me to the pharmacy that was open at that time. He purchased the Plan B. Also another thing. I also, because I was, again, so distraught. I looked so tattered that I was like, okay, at this point now, I'm just trying to be kind, because going back to the earlier point, I don't know what else this person can do to me. So let me try to soften the situation as much as I could. I go to we get to the pharmacy parking lot. He goes in first to try to purchase the Plan B, and I don't know, in the Cayman Islands, like in Canada, a morning after pill is over the counter. You don't need to talk to a pharmacy sister, get a prescription to get it. You just pick it up the shelf and go. But I guess here, he came back out of the car and said the pharmacist has to see me, and I was so mortified, because I remember the way this woman looked at me. Because I was wearing my clothes from last night. I clearly look like I could see in her eyes what kind of assumptions was going through her mind. One of the most degrading and horrifying looks I've gotten someone. But I had to see her to be able to, for her to write the prescription so he can pay for the pill. And he purchased it. We went straight back home. And mind you, at that time, I guess I don't live in the Cayman Islands anymore. So I lived at Residence Hall, the one right on West Bay Road, right beside the St. Matthew's Residence Hall. So he knew I lived there. He knew I was a student of said university. So he took me right back there. He didn't know again, mind you, we barely had any in-person or over the phone communication, very sparsely. So he knew I lived in residence hall, but a lot of the students lived in our residence hall. So it's not like a surprising thing, but he definitely did not know what units inside of that residence hall. So he dropped me off, and he was.
Can I just pause you for a second? I want to ask you, because one of the things that really stood out about your testimony, like how you described his house and what happened there with the second assault. You said that you felt like a cockroach. Oh my God. That was the visual for me. First of all, I'm afraid of roaches. But for me, cockroaches are like the most disgusting and vile thing. That they're ugly looking, they're dirty, I think that analogy, and for you to describe it in that way, was like, wow.
Yeah.
You talked about how nasty the bathroom was. There wasn't a clean towel for you to even wipe with, like nothing. Oh my God. Like it's layers upon layers of just, I don't even know.
Yeah, I definitely felt like a vermin, a roach, in so many ways, physically, mentally, emotionally, environmentally. His own bedroom, I didn't talk about the bedroom was disgusting. It was
you talked about dirty sheets and
quite terrible living conditions, especially if he had children living with him, but that's a whole nother conversation. So we arrive back at the residence hall. So he drops me, and again, I think in his mind, I had the plan B, I'm going to take it. You know what? It's all good. I remember when I was actually getting out of the car, and I don't remember if I mentioned this in the police interview or during trial, but I remember him like smacking my ass or my butt.
When was this?
As soon as he parked at the residence hall, I'm proceeding to get out of the vehicle.
My God. Yeah.
And then walk into the building. And as I'm putting one leg out, and mind you, now my phone is dead, so it's useless. So in the car, but I have my dead phone in my hand. I'm getting in the car. I'm trying to be just go. And he smacks me on my behind as I exited.
So it's so obvious. I mean, he never admits to any of this, but his level of denial of what he has done, even after, and this is typical narcissistic behavior, right? But even after he's saying things to you like, "Oh, don't make me feel like a monster," you mean to tell me that when you're getting out of the car, this guy has the audacity to slap you on your ass? What the hell?
Yeah, he really thought that he really thought that this was I think in his mind, the only minor inconvenience in what happened is that, oh, I had to get her emergency contraceptives. But everything else was just, I guess, oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Just normal, I don't know, I guess just a normal sexual interaction for him. So I get in, I scurry in, and I remember just as soon as I close the door, I'm inside my residence hall. At this point, I broke down. I couldn't even describe the words, the type of mental state I was in. And then the first thought in my mind was, I just need to take the longest, the hottest, most scrubbed shower I've ever taken in my life. And I remember just I probably took 5 or 6 showers in that 24 hours that I could not get him off of me from his smell. Even till today, if I smell that, I know that's him. It felt like he was in my pores, as disgusting as that sounds, but for up to a week after, I would just be it was entrenched into my skin, trying to scrub. And then I believe within the first 2 or 3 hour period of after I arrived back home, I called my friends, and all of the first people I contacted did not live in the Cayman Islands. They were, back home in Canada or in other Caribbean countries. And I contacted them and I told them what had happened, and they were amazing support. Even one of my good friends, she's like a sister to me. I either contacted her first or second, I forgot in the sequence, and she was able to appear in court to testify and all of that, and as a witness. And then over that weekend, so now
let me just I want to highlight this because I think this is important. So for people who said, oh, why did she wait to talk to the police? And even his defense is, oh, you wanted him to pay for an abortion and blah, blah, blah. None of that could be true, because you had witnesses that could come to court and say that after this happened, within hours of this assault happening, of her being raped twice, not once, but twice, she contacted people that she trusted and told them what had happened to her. And I guess maybe he wasn't counting on the fact that you had done that. He was counting on the fact that maybe, like a lot of victims do, you tell no one. And there's nothing wrong with victims who tell no one, believe me, because they're trying to work out in their head. They're even trying to accept and understand what just happened to them. But that wasn't the case here. This was a woman who appreciated immediately that she had been raped. As you guys can see, she's a smart young lady. She was a medical student. It dawned on her, although she might have been suffering with some degree of dissociative disorder, it still dawned on her that she had been raped. And she expressed that to people as well.
Yeah. I started expressing it within a couple of hours after I, brought myself to a point that I can at least pick up a phone, and even if it's 1 or 2 words, and, have some kind of conversation with somebody, or express myself or emote myself. In that way, I told 2 of my really good friends right away. And we have text message, and we have, the phone calls, but we had at least the text message exchange, but we had extensive phone calls. I had told an ex-boyfriend the next day, and on Monday or Tuesday, so because this happened Friday to Saturday. And mind you, another thing I would add, the 4 girls that I went out with, the whole weekend went, and none of them checked on me. I could have been back in Canada, in my room or in the bottom of the ocean floor. None of them checked up on me and say, oh, did you even make it home? Or, none of them even checked up on me. I did not even have any conversation with any of those ladies until Monday, when I saw them in school. And because they had shown me the kind of people they were, I did not feel comfortable, obviously, telling them my ordeal of the weekend. So Monday, Tuesday, now, and the next person, which is very interesting, I'm going to talk about this with tact, because it regards the school I attended while I was in Cayman Islands. So I disclosed it to our school psychologist, the first professional I talked to, and this is Monday, Tuesday, as soon as I got back in classes when I can go. I went to talk to her, and I went into her office, so choked I could barely talk, and then I told her everything. So she was actually the first professional that I had spoken to about it, and because she is a psychologist, she has to keep her case notes and her case consult. So there was documentation as early as I guess 48 to 72 hours after the incident about my experience. So she had been this is not on her, because I think certain comments I might make later on, this is not on her. I believe if she's listening, I don't know if she's still in the Cayman Islands or working there. This is not on you. I guess she was bound by higher ups, but I'll bring that up later. But she was the first professional I went to. So we talked about it. I would see her pretty much every single day, post the assault in her office. She'll check up on me via email. I'll come to her office and do checkups. So she's a registered psychologist. So she's obviously definitely well-versed. She's a school counselor. She's the only school counselor we had at that time. So she also got me, she was just being a great person. And then I forgot what had happened, but I think a week or two went by, just trying to process the trauma around the assault that had happened. I was so afraid to leave my room. So afraid, because mind you, this person knows where I live, where I go to school, and I do most of my activities within a probably not even a 2-mile radius. I go to the Kirks right there, the Fosters there. I don't have a car, so rarely do I leave this how many mile radius to do anything. So he knows enough about me that I was very concerned and very worried that what if he pops up again? So I stayed mostly confined to my room and doing what I can. At that point, I was just trying to sleep it all away. The depression, I would have night terrors continuously, wake up crying, go to bed crying, to the point that I couldn't physically just get up for bed and all of that kind of stuff. And at that point, I'm just, trying to do the best I can with what I got. And about later, I missed my period. And I was like, okay. At first I was like, I took a emergency contraceptive. One of the side effects is it'll throw off your menstrual cycle. So let me give it some time, because also another thing, I took the emergency contraceptive way within the recommended time frame. Literally, as soon as I got into my room, I popped the pill, and I did not wait. I did not hesitate to take that. So I was like, okay, my menstrual cycle, and then a couple of more days went by. I was like, okay, let me go and buy a pregnancy test or 2 pregnancy tests, just to rule out, my period's just late. And they both came back very positive. That was the first time in my life I've ever remember fainting. And
oh my God.
Luckily, sorry about him.
Yeah, that's okay. Can I just say, your dog is so beautiful. He reminds me of my Coco, which I lost tragically. Looks like the exact same dog. And it's so funny because I've been watching him. She would do that all the time. He was sleeping on his back at one point, and he's been rolling around very comfortably there the whole time. He's so cute, but yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry about Coco.
No, that's okay. I feel like it's kind of weird that your dog looks just like Coco, and you're talking about such a tragic thing that has happened to you, which, lots of comments coming in. We'll read some of those in a minute about just how incredibly brave you are for sharing this story. But my God, you said you fainted, you were in such a state of shock.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm even like struggling to grasp with the words. I was in such a state of shock because I took the first pregnancy test, and I know pregnancy tests are 99%. You can't get a false negative or false positive, sorry, with a pregnancy test. So I was like, no, it's a faulty. I didn't pee on this thing right. You know, you're trying to create rationale in your head. And I did the second one, and then I remember when the second one came fully positive, I collapsed. I came to, so this was the middle of the weekday, and I took my pregnancy test, hopped on a bus, took it down West Bay Road, arrived at the school, marched with my pregnancy test in hand, and I put it on her desk, and I don't think I could find. Sorry,
That's okay. That's okay.
Find the words. I couldn't find the words just to describe. Oh my God. I couldn't find the words. I couldn't find the words. And I forgot to mention earlier, I had what we call it an OSCE exam, which is like a clinical exam where you practice being a doctor, and you have a patient that's a student, and then you have a proctor, and then you have, you're practicing your doctor skills. Let's just put it like that. And I remember I had it before, and I disclosed to my professor, who ended up being the family doctor that I went to after finding out that I was pregnant, who also ended up being the family doctor that testified for me. I had a breakdown. I couldn't take the test. And she had to pull me aside, and we had a conversation in her office, and I had to tell her that, like, I'm so sorry. I can't think. I can barely breathe. This is, what had happened. And so fast forward, the last thing I think anybody expected, definitely me, was to be pregnant. So my school counselor took me straight to that doctor's office, because she also has a physical office. And there was no more like confirmation that needed to happen, because the pregnancy test was it. And so she just provided me amazing emotional support. And that's when we started calling clinics back in Canada, because this is another thing that came up during the trial. Abortion is legal and it's free, it's covered in our healthcare in Canada. So she was calling clinics for me back in my home city to arrange the date of the termination, the abortion. But that was still a couple of weeks out. So I knew I was gonna go home during that period. My plane tickets were already bought by my parents. Let me specify.
Now, had you told your parents what had happened to you?
Not at that point, because I had, after that OSCE exam, I had like probably 3 other exams, board exams we had to take at the end of semester. So I still had another 2 weeks more of school, which were all back-to-back board exams. And I said, let me just make it through the term the best way I can. So I had not told them to that point. So they already bought my plane ticket, because I was just scheduled to come home at that time. And another thing that came up in the case, I had blocked this person's number, his number, as soon as I charged my cell phone, that number was blocked. Upon the revelation that I was pregnant, I unblocked his number, and I believe I texted him first that I'm pregnant, and people were like, why would you tell him? I didn't want his approval or anything like that. I was like, this is what you already did so much to damage me already, but now you want to kill me. Like, I don't know. I just wanted to scream. So I unblocked him to tell him that we had a phone conversation. Basically, it's me I couldn't even think. I was just so beside myself. And then we got off the phone conversation. I texted him and said, no matter what I choose to do with this child, you will never, ever, ever, ever be a part of it. To that point, I didn't tell him I was going to get an abortion or not. I didn't tell him what steps were. I said, whatever I choose to do with this, you're not going to ever have any contact with me or this child. And I prayed that you never bring as much pain as you did to me to any other person. Any other person, any other woman ever again. And that was the last time I had any conversation or contact with him. And now I know I was pregnant. I think at that point I was 6 weeks and probably like 4 or 5 days when the pregnancy was confirmed. And then I had another 2 weeks of just exams. I went to my school. Mind you, my school counselor knows, my professor knows. Now I have to go and tell all the rest of my professors.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, it's mortifying. The dean knows. So because I was all day sickness, I think it was so many things I couldn't every time I felt like I was gonna throw up during my exams, I had to sit close to the bathrooms and not ask permission. So just in case I need to run out, we're not allowed beverages in the exam hall. I need to have like a ginger ale next to me. And also another thing that was happening because of the plan or the morning contraception I took, the doctor hypothesized that maybe the implantation was weak and I could be at a higher risk to have a miscarriage. And I remember just getting these radiating pelvic pains. I was like, I'll be in class. I'll be like, I really hope I don't have a miscarriage right now.
God. My God.
I hope miscarriage. And even another thing, I'm international. I had travel insurance, but to go to the hospital, get all the things that I need, God forbid if I had a miscarriage, I don't know if my travel insurance covers all of that. So I'm also thinking financially, this is not I'm thinking a lot of things. So in my exams, could barely walk, barely talk. I wasn't eating. I did what I could in my exams, all of that kind of stuff. And my next party was I'm going home. It was time for me to head on the plane and go back home to obviously see my family and also to have the abortion. I remember because my flight plan came in Miami, Houston, my final destination. I'm not going to say what city. And I remember in the Miami airport, my pelvic pain was so radiating and I was like, okay, I just need to get on this plane. And then the plane was having some technical functional difficulties. So we're on the tarmac and then kept getting worse. I had to tell the flight attendants, this is what's happening. I feel I never felt that level of cramping and we're already now 30,000 feet in the air. I was like, I think I might have a miscarriage. So having to now alert people that have a medical emergency and then everybody has to land the plane. It was a very mortifying experience. Got home.
Oh my God.
And yeah.
And let me just back up a little bit. In addition to all this horrific stuff happening, you were feeling suicidal as well. You were suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. And your support team in Cayman, the physicians, had given you, is it like an antidepressant? What were they medicating you with?
Yeah. So anti-anxiety medication and antidepressants was prescribed to me. Yeah.
Wow.
So to get through that time, I would become either so numb that I couldn't physically do anything, or so emotionally unstable that I would try to harm myself in various capacities. So psychologically, it was very difficult. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I'm very sorry that this happened to you. I mean, it's hard to hear. And I think a lot of us are feeling very emotional hearing this story, but I think it's something that it's a necessary evil, because I think part of the issue for me is the discourse that we have in this community, in the rape culture and the acceptance of these individuals at the level that we accept them is in part because we haven't ever sat down and spoken to a rape victim. Most of you have never. If you've not experienced it yourself, you've never taken the time to ask someone what they went through, to give you a real appreciation for the physical trauma, the emotional and psychological trauma, and just everything that comes with it. It's easy for us to sit back and judge rape victims. Well, why was she drinking? And why was she doing this and whatever? And then when you hear the story, you know, for me, it gives you a level of understanding and appreciation that you don't get from any other way. You don't get it from reading the CMR stories, because most of you don't even read past the first paragraph, right? You don't get it from me being in the comment section, trying to make points and argue with you. But I'm hoping that you guys are really listening today to this young lady and you're understanding with both your hearts and your minds exactly what it is that she went through. I mean, this is so much. I mean, from not just the sexual assault and being raped, but then to become pregnant by your rapist. Was there ever a thought in your mind about potentially keeping that child, or were you from day one like, absolutely not?
That went through my mind at first. Like, my first reaction when I went to the doctor's office was like, I need to get rid of this. And then as the weeks went by and, you know, the hormones kicked in, I was like, maybe I can imagine a life or a possibility of having this baby and providing this child my best and doing the best what I can for this
Right.
child. So yeah, it was when I walked into the abortion center in Canada, that was they could have rolled me in on a wheelbarrow at that point. It was I think I was making that decision until they wheeled me into the surgical centers to undergo it. But I felt connected. I felt that obviously this baby didn't have to suffer because of this, and my ultimate decision that it's unfair if you have the choice or the ability. And again, everybody can navigate this however they want to. I'm not shaming or blaming people who choose to have or who wants to continue the pregnancy after they have been raped. But for me, I didn't think it would be fair to myself and that baby, because I won't be able to provide the best or be the best mom. And I always think to myself, like, God forbid if this kid comes out looking like him.
Oh my God. Right? Oh my God. Yes.
And I have to still practice forgiveness, because I've always been pro-choice. I've never not been pro-choice, but when, you know, it's inside of you and you're faced with all the possibilities of it and hormones, maternal instinct, you're like, oh, you know, this is an innocent baby that didn't deserve this. You start to think, like, am I actually making the best choice? And even till today, I don't think I can ever fully forgive myself. I think part of me will always feel like, yeah, that I could never just fully, even though I'm pro-choice, I will always be forever pro-choice. But for me personally, it will always be something in my life that will come up. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not something you wanted to do and you struggled with the decision.
Yeah. I struggled with the decision. It was the best decision for me, but it was a hard decision to make. And even now, I still get flashbacks of they put me on so many medications. I was out, but I remember I was awake, but I don't like feel the pain. I was on fentanyl, morphine, all these kind of things to undergo the termination. But I remember the blinding lights of the surgical room, or the room that it happened. And I remember it's a center, so they have a bunch of girls lined up that are coming in for abortion. I remember just how sterile it was, seeing girls like crying, inconsolable, the nurses, the lights of, being in a bedroom and being wheeled in, you're the next one to, it felt very, it wasn't it was a comfortable environment. They make it as comfortable as they can, but it was still it's a clinical environment. It was still very sterile and cold. And I felt like, just seeing women lined up about to be wheeled in, and we're all coming in for the same reason, even though we all have different stories of why we're here. It's very hard to imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you have the abortion. You told your parents before this point or after?
So after, because I was like, I come from my background is African, and there's a lot of culture, especially around like excellence in schooling, and there's so many sacrifices that my parents have made, not only as immigrants for their children, but being able to, for me to go to medical school, it wasn't only getting government student loans, but my parents had put a lot of like tens of thousands of dollars of their own personal money for me to be able to do this. So I didn't want to disappoint them. I didn't want them to feel like they shouldn't have, like I didn't want to disappoint them. So actually I didn't let my parents know until after. I remember this was actually the day after I got the termination. My friend had taken me to the center and dropped me off. I was under so many medications that, when I got back home, all I could do was just sleep. And then I remember waking up the next day and I was just like, this actually happened. Like, I'm still, bleeding and all of that kind of stuff from the procedure, still have like my little diaper on. And I remember me and my mom, we were having like just like a petty mom and daughter disagreement. And I remember just like it escalating. And I just broke down and just told her everything. Right there and then, just let it all, because I couldn't hold it anymore in any longer. The day before I had the termination, and I just told her everything at once right there and then. And my mom is my angel. She never shamed me. She never blamed me. She even told me that I wish you told me right after it happened, because I wanted to be with you and hold your hand as you went through the termination. And I thought, because we come from a very Christian background, my grandparents are deacon and deaconess, that, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get the full blunt of, you're a murderer, you're and my mom said, I wish I could have been there and taken you there and held you as you went through this procedure. And she has been by my side, and my rest of my family have been by my side since then. But I remember just being so scared of disappointing them, scared of being an idiot. Like, why did I go out? I was raised better than this. My parents don't deserve this. They don't deserve to, I don't want to see them hurt. I don't want to see them disappointed. I want to be the best daughter that I can for them. They've been so in so many ways. This is the least I can't. So I thought that I could just go. I was like, oh, maybe in my 50s, I will tell my mom or my, when everything is settled, I'll yeah, but I couldn't hold it in. Oh God.
And it's so good that you've had that support, because unfortunately a lot of victims don't. As you say, cultural things, religious people might have said all sorts of stuff to you about the abortion and this and that. So I think that that's amazing that you had such a supportive mother who, without question, was there for you first and foremost as her daughter. Yes. It's just it's so emotional, and it's like you're carrying all of this hurt and shame and all these very complex feelings about everything, about the decision to abort the child, about, I mean, it's just so much. And what I always found egregious is Renato was out there living his best life. He probably didn't even give you a second thought. It's just, I know you'd blocked him on WhatsApp, but this isn't someone who cared. And in fact, he said to people that he does this kind of thing all the time. And the first time he does it to a Black girl, he ends up in court and charged with rape. And so I have to question and wonder how many other victims are out there that we will probably never even know about.
Yeah.
To me, it's hard to stomach what he did to you, but to imagine that he's actually done this to, God knows, he said all the time, so I don't know how many people that could possibly be, is really, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I guess in the timeline of events, came home, had the termination. I started counseling here. Funny enough, I'm not going to disclose where I work in Canada, but one of my first counseling programs that I went to is actually where I work for now. So it's kind of like the agency that I work for now. But so come back, because now it's a new semester. So I'm back in the Cayman Islands. So now,
so at that point, you were still trying to continue with school. You were.
Yes. And I'm going to be very transparent. My mom told me you need to take a semester off. School counselor told me you need to rest, take a semester off. But my kind of stubborn mind, I was like, he took away this, but you cannot take away my future, my education. I'm going to prove, despite all of this, I am still somebody. I'm not saying that the only way to be somebody is to be a teacher. But this is something, a goal that I've worked through my entire life. You can't take that away from me. And also, one of my goals, even before this happened, is I've always wanted to be, or I wanted to be an OBGYN, and specifically minority health advocacy and education, especially with Black people. We know about things that happen with their reproductive health and different cultural and societal factors, how it impacts Black women and Black children particularly different. So that was always my goal, even before all that happens. So even more of a driver, so I can actually help people in a tangible way. So I was like, no, despite all of that, I was being hard-headed. I thought I could, I thought it was like, unfortunately, I'm in counseling. You know what? It's going to be a hard road, but I can do this. But we are nothing but flesh and blood at the end of the day. And started to just, again, further implode. I have now began the court stuff. So actually, I didn't go to the Cayman Island Police. My school counselor actually liaised me with the folks at the Red Cross, the Cayman Island Red Cross, and then they took me to the Family Victims Support Unit to make the police report directly with one of the detectives there. So I didn't walk into the police station. I don't think I had that level of bravado to do all of that. That's a very daunting process. But now I had started the police process back in school full time. Now I'm also in counseling on the island twice a week, every week, because of just how the nature of it. I had to be in very intense counseling. So I was trying to balance all of that, going to the police station, doing my due diligence and whatever I have to do on that end, making sure I'm going to my counseling appointment because I couldn't function, and trying to survive medical school. For the beginning, I had the full support of my school. After I made the report, they even allowed the detectives to come to the campus or the university. They gave us boardrooms so we can have meetings, checked up on me, all of that kind of stuff. But at a point, I believe this is around February or January 2019. So now we're in 2019. They're providing me support, all of that kind of stuff. I'm thinking, oh, they're part of my case. And I get email from the school counselor at that school. And this counselor told me that whatever higher ups told her she can have no involvement with this case anymore, including releasing my case notes. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
She's a professional counselor.
Yeah, but she's also an employee at
St. Matthew's University. I'm going to just name them and shame them this morning. So they told her that as a counselor, and she was acting in that capacity for you, she couldn't even provide case notes to the police?
Yeah. And mind you, she was the first professional I disclosed to in this.
Oh my God. And do people understand how detrimental that could even be to a case? Because you spoke to her within days of this happening.
Yeah. And continuously, like either every day or every other day we're having,
it's systematic things like this that really piss me off, to be honest. Why would they have such a policy? That's just stupid.
It really came out of left field. I was shocked. The detective I had at that time, we had conversations. They were shocked. They didn't know where my case was going to go after this, because that was such a, major witness.
Yes,
and they
absolutely.
said,
oh my God.
Their hands, basically they wiped their hands of me completely, to the point they said she can't speak to
St. Matthew's. I'm so disappointed.
I think they didn't want the bad PR. If I was going to get,
they can get bad PR now. Hello, like seriously?
I guess I'll say all the allegedly's. But I don't think they wanted the bad PR, because I guess they saw where this case was going and they didn't want. Again, this didn't happen on school campus. It didn't happen at the residence hall. It didn't happen with a student. It didn't happen with a staff member. It didn't happen with the professor. Nothing around St. Matthew's other than that I was a student that went to that school. That was the only involvement of St. Matthew's in that. So I'm gonna say allegedly and all this, all of that. But yeah, they essentially wiped their hands clean on me and said they're no longer going to be involved in my case. And I believe, no definite proof, but I strongly believe when it was time, because my grades were slipping. Like my grades were skipping, and when it was time to, for me to go on the chopping block, it was that much easier for pack your bags, go back to Canada, and good luck with whatever comes of this, whatever.
Unbelievable. I mean, that to me is, I mean, you expect support from institutions and, whether it's the police or hospital professionals, doctors, and somehow I missed that. Did that come up in the evidence? Because I did not hear. I guess it didn't come up because she wouldn't have testified. Oh my God.
Yeah, it did not come up because, again, they refused to have any involvement, and this was their involvement stopped in probably by February. Yeah, February 2019. It stopped. I left the island in May 2019, so finished whatever is left of the semester, packed my bags. I actually came back to Canada, came back again to the Cayman Islands, took all my stuff, came home again. Didn't hear anything from the school again. The detective at the time, everything just fell on deaf ears. I was like, okay, I guess I tried what I could. At least, they tell you to do due diligence. I put my best foot forward. Let me try to put the pieces back of my life together and not have the expectation that there's any kind of reconciliation, whether it be with the school I attended or with the police or him. This is my cross to bear for the rest of my life, and I just have to start putting the bits of pieces that I can back together of my life. And
you see, yeah, I mean, I'm even thinking like legislatively, we're talking about sexual harassment legislation. Our MPs need to be listening this morning, because there should be no way. In fact, I am sure that goes against the current law, but it's in the Children's Act. So probably for you as an adult, it doesn't help you, because there is mandatory reporting in the Children's Act for sexual victims. But that should be across the board. There should be a compulsion on her as a professional to provide clinical notes, provide whatever evidence she has to the police. Like, that shouldn't be optional for her employer to say, no, you can't do this. I am so pissed off by that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, it was definitely insult upon injury. And just to clarify, I believe that counselor, in case she's listening or she gets wind of this, that she did the best she could for me. But again, I'm going to say allegedly, they were threatening her with they were threatening her with things like her employment, all of that kind of stuff. They came down hard on her. And when she had to deliver that news to me, she was so remorseful and so disappointed and so hurt that she can't help me past this point, because now it's her livelihood is now on the line. And this was coming from, I believe, higher ups. So I was crushed on all levels. I was crushed on all levels, but I packed my bag, came back home, and I said, and I guess lucky or unlucky for me, because, actually, it worked in my advantage. This was May. I actually got readmitted to another medical school, and then I had to have a serious conversation with myself. I said, I feel like 1/100th of a person. I cannot invest this much more money and all this much more time and resourcing to just break. I have to invest in myself again. So I decided, it was a hard decision to completely just take myself for the foreseeable future out of the prospects of pursuing medicine, to get myself together, because for example, I have a 6-figure student loan that I have. It's not cheap. And not only just the economic cost of it, but being in med school, it's a whole mental battle. You're very isolated, there's not a lot of time for you. So I had to make a judgment call and say, I'm going to step back. So I started putting back the pieces of my life together. Pandemic happens. It worked a little bit in my favor. Life really slowed down. For me, it's not a good thing globally, but for me, it allowed me to really think. And I was, again, still in counseling, still in therapy. And what started me on the trajectory, actually, and also in this time, I get an email for a detective from the Cayman Islands. So now this is 2020. I'm trying to remember where I was. 2020. Yeah, 2020, June 2020 now. So this is now like almost over a year after I feel like everything has gone cold. That's it. I get an email from a detective and they're like, are you still interested in pursuing this case or being involved in this case? I said, yeah. And I didn't ask the reason why. I assumed it was because of the school thing. I don't know what was happening, or a lot of sexual assault cases, people just get left behind. So I always thought, okay, I just got forgotten in the system. So I was like, kind of chopped it off to that. But then they said, do you want to, reopen this thing and be part of it again? And I said, yes. And then started back on the path of this case. And what began my advocacy was outside of my personal experience. I remember when the R. Kelly documentary first came out. That was like maybe like 5 or 6 months after my assault happened. I shouldn't have been watching it. It was very triggering. But I watched it. And what stood out to me the most was how much people knew for 30, because it was even before he was going to high school trying to solicit teenage girls. So people have known for decades. And people not only know, but actively gone on their way to protect him or facilitate assaults for him, teenagers. So I was like, I knew this was a thing, but I didn't know how much people go out of their way to actively protect predators. It was beyond red flags at that moment.
Yes.
It was like, maybe he could do, you were helping him facilitate.
Yeah. And can I tell you, I actually, like I said, we don't know each other, but I hosted a viewing of that documentary. At the time, I had an office in Pasadena Place there on Smith Road. And I invited people to come and watch it together. And I hosted a viewing. And I remember people came, Isadora, Miss Marva, a few people, mostly women. I can't remember if there were any men there. I think it might have been all women that came together and watched this together. We just had some snacks and then we talked about it afterwards. And so many women have had different experiences of sexual assaults or harassment, or, there's always something that you find the majority of women in particular, but even men, can relate to that has happened to them. So sometimes it's not like a rape, but it's unwanted touching. It's, there's just a lot. And I remember that we hosted that. And at the time, and this shows you how individually we're all doing our own stuff in life, but in so many respects, we're like connected and we don't even know it, right? So I too was shocked at what I learned from that documentary. I couldn't believe how many enablers he had, active participants, active enablers who were getting the girls for him, like you said, going to high schools, recruiting the girls. And then you still had people in the comment section, in the narrative, well, what about their parents? And why wasn't some of these girls wanted something from him? And it is just so shocking. And so ironically, after watching that documentary, I was motivated to do what was the name of the documentary again? It was oh God, hold on. I'm going to look it up. Because then I did a similar documentary featuring a man here in the Cayman Islands who's very prolific. R. Kelly. Let me see. It was called, oh Lord, Surviving R. Kelly. Mm-hmm. So I did a surviving. I can't say his name because of legal proceedings, which I'm now getting ready to challenge that whole court case, right? And I did an expose on him because he is prolific. He's out there sending messages to women in our community. Oh, I'll give you $1,000 if you show me your breasts. He's going after underage girls. I had parents come forward. Oh, he wanted to offer me money to have access to my teenage daughter. Like all this stuff. And people in the community knows this. This is somebody who's running for public office, who wants your vote and your support. And yet he has a long laundry list of women who have said, he has done these things to me. They've messaged me. Some of them, out of desperation, had sexual relations with him because they were desperate for money to pay their bills or whatever. This is a vile and disgusting person. We have so many of them here on this island, to be very, very clear, right? Who've gotten away with it. You guys know who they are. They're community members. We can't get a sex offenders registry on this island. And so I was so pissed off about that I did this documentary that landed me in court with charges for harassing him. And I get convicted by a judge for harassment of this man. Well, why would you call him a pedophile? And all this kind of stuff is what the judge, I mean, I had really horrible counsel, to be honest. But I'm saying to the judge, because everybody in the community knows him to be that and sees him that way. And I'm just the only one who is either stupid or brave enough to just put this out there to try to warn people. Because I live in a country where no one that can do it, AKA our politicians, put a sex offender registry in place. No one has gone after him. The police have never gone after this guy and tried to even sought a conviction. You know, so it angers me on behalf of every single victim out there that we still are playing dollhouse with this topic, you know? And of course, yeah, I'm the one who gets convicted of harassing him with the truth. I'm like, what the like, I couldn't even fathom, you know, like I said, I'm going to appeal it. I made up my mind that I'm definitely going to appeal it. And some people are like, who did you go to court for? People don't even remember. It's so funny how people don't even remember what really went down. But, you know, he was the one who was sitting in court pretending to be the victim. And about, oh, he's fat because of me. And he has high blood pressure issues because I was exposing him in this community. We are on another level in this country folks, when it comes to the compliance, whether it is blindly, we just put on blinders, or whether it is a willful compliance, like St. Matthew's. I'm going to call St. Matthew's name today, girl, and I'm going to call down everything in the heavens on them, because that was wrong what they did. You know, your entire case, thankfully it didn't, but it could have hinged on her providing her clinical notes in a court of law and being supportive of you. And thank God this wasn't a jury trial, I must tell you, because sometimes juries are very flip-floppy, right? But I think the judge was still able to see through all of his lies and his consistencies. And it was a good thing that you didn't have this additional piece of evidence. Of course, the defense gets up there, well, why did you wait so long? And why was this only a case like years later? I mean, they try to paint this narrative as though you didn't tell anybody. You didn't do anything. You didn't do your part. And let me be very clear, even if she didn't, because a lot of rape victims are not able to do that for months, for years. Some people never can come forward. You know, that doesn't mean that they weren't raped. That doesn't mean that they weren't sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
So that's one of the most egregious things I've heard today. I mean, the whole thing is egregious to me, but I can't believe they're professional. You see, if that was me and I were her, I would have given the finger to St. Matthew's and said, go ahead and fire me, but I'm going to do my part to support this victim. And I'm not trying to shame her in any way, because I think you said that, you know, she was supportive for you and whatever, but there are times when, as women and as people in this community, in whatever community you live in, you've got to be prepared to take a stand for other people.
Yeah.
You got to be prepared to go on the airwaves, on the line, and say, everybody knows this man is a predator, and now I'm calling him out. And yeah, I'm the one who ends up in court, but that was okay, because now y'all know who he is. Right? And so I feel like I would have made a different decision if I were her. But again, we can say that because I wasn't her, I suppose, at the end of the day. And I don't know what her personal circumstances are. She's probably here on a work permit, probably moved her entire life. And as most people here on a work permit, you feel like, you know, you have very few choices of your own that you can make without your employer being ready to fire you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
And even with the work I do, and even various universities I've encountered, even universities in Canada, this is a common theme, like covering up rapes, missing students. It's like one of my mentors, she had a very public rape trial in Canada. And you know, the university she went to had and this is a very esteemed university in Canada. They did the exact same thing, right? They try to kick her out, silence her, just like, get out of our periphery. We don't want you bringing this. And it happens all the time. And you know, this is just the culture and the system that we have. Again, what makes it so hard?
They try to cover up a lot. It's shocking, unbelievable. Wow. Somebody just mentioned that I need to watch. We have to talk about Cosby. There's so much of it that happens, and especially in our cultures, African Americans, people who from, you know, Afrocentric, Afro-Caribbean, whatever we're calling ourselves these days, Black people, whatever is a politically correct term. I think we are still, there's an overall rape culture that hurts all rape victims, but specific to our culture, we are still very much in this mindset of not being able to help rape victims and just ignoring them. And I have to wonder if the narrative would have been different if you were Caucasian from the school's perspective, if they would have been more willing to help you. Now, I know for a fact that a lot of, because I have a friend, she's since moved overseas, but her father was connected as one of the administrators to the school for many, many years. And I mean, he left a long time ago, but you know, one of the things that was going on at the school is that police officers were actually targeting. Now, y'all listen very, very closely to this, okay? Police officers were targeting St. Matthew students, female students, stopping them on West Bay Road. Like, they would hang out at all the nightclubs that they know that they go to, the old bars, whatever, hanging out in that quadrant, looking for these students. If they were driving, they'd pull them over. Oh, you're over the limit, but if you give me your phone number in exchange for sexual favors, I'm not going to arrest you, and I'm not going to get you in trouble, because if you get arrested, you're going to get kicked out of your program at St. Matthew's. And because they knew that there was this pressure on at St. Matthew's academically, right? That if their students get involved in anything extracurricular that's going to bring shame and disgrace to the university, it was an immediate expulsion. They were actually using that to their advantage to get into sexual relations and BJs and whatever else with these girls from the university, just so that they could stay in school. And I don't know how many St. Matthew's students have fallen victim to that, but it was happening. And I don't know if it's still continuing, but I'm telling you, it was a thing and it was happening. And it's shocking that officers who's supposed to be there to serve and protect would be part of the problem as well.
Yeah. Even right before I left, and I'm going to say all the allegedlys in the world right now, allegedly, there was a situation or a case with a former professor at the veterinary school, because, the medical school and the veterinary school is attached. And allegedly, there was inappropriate sexual misconduct with a student and this veterinary professor, allegedly. And they dismissed her, and they gave one roundabout he was an older man. They're like, I guess he retired or whatever. They honorably sent him on the way, and then basically they're like, get out. But he allegedly, and I will never forget that, because that was the exact same time my situation. So I noticed a pattern and a theme. I put two and two together in my head, and I said, this is not just, yeah, allegedly.
Unbelievable. So eventually the police contact you all this time later, and you say, yes, you want to pursue the case. And then it starts to pick up some steam from there. You give an official statement.
Yes. And all the official, because I gave the witnesses, back in 2018, 2019. So I had to go back, relook at the evidence I had, recontact potential witnesses, contact the clinic I had the abortion at that point, because I told them, I asked for them, or I consented for them to keep the embryo, or not the embryo, the embryo as forensic evidence. And
I thought that was so smart of you. I must tell you that despite all the trauma that you've been through, you're obviously a very smart young lady, because when I heard that in court, I'm like, wow, I wouldn't have even thought of that. But, because he might have denied the whole thing. Like, you don't know what his defense would have been and what his angle might have been. But of course, at this point, there's very little forensic evidence. So he might have denied, like, oh, I never had sex with her or whatever. And I think even him, because it was brought up in court, I think even he was shocked to have heard that you did that you requested them to basically keep the fetal matter from the abortion, because that could prove DNA. There's DNA evidence right there.
Yeah, there's DNA evidence.
That was so smart, girl.
So, so I had to contact them, open up my medical records again, people I even haven't talked to in years. And I even initially had posted, or potentially had those girls that I went out with. It's like, okay, they're the last people to see me. Before that evening, none of them wanted to participate. Everybody to each their own. So yeah, I had to reopen things that I haven't opened in a while, go through cell phone records, contact people, all of that kind of stuff, that kind of like basically putting me back at square on everything but the actual police interview where I'm actually being videotaped. I had to now go back and revisit that and bring as much things to the forefront as I could. So yeah. that was that was difficult. That was hard. And it was during pandemic. I think the borders were still closed, obviously a lot of uncertainty around COVID. So I was like, okay, there's gonna be delays with it when this reaches trial, because travel restrictions, COVID, all the legal systems up. So I was like, okay, just if and when this day comes, it'll come. But at least it gives you time to become mentally and emotionally ready for this next phase. So that was kind of like at that point.
Wow. Oh my gosh, this is just so, the whole thing is just so unbelievable. I mean, your level of bravery, where do you think the bravery comes from, Derin? I mean, your level of bravery to me has just been amazing. Even your, because you could have testified via video link. And I remember during the trial, the prosecution said that you insisted on being there in person. Why did you want to be there in person? Why was that so important to you?
When for years I saw him as the biggest boogeyman to ever, my own personal devil, if that makes sense. Like, even when I was in Cayman and I couldn't easily go to the grocery store, I would see somebody that from the back vaguely had the same build and structure as him, and I would have a panic attack and I would run out of the, so I was confined in my body, in my place of residence, and the things I could do or can't do. I was confined. And one of the things is, like, even if I can make a difference for one other person, one other woman, one other girl, let me take an effort to do this. Let me try, right? And the chances, and I don't know, a lot of people know that, like, I think convictions, I think this is even globally, this stats is pretty consistent across countries. Convictions are very low, under 1%. Rape and sexual assault. So the number stacked up against me. Like, I might as well play the lotto and take my chances there, because the numbers are what it is very, 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 very low. Conviction rates less than 1% compared to the amount of sexual assaults that I have.
And this is another reason why I particularly get upset when uneducated people get in the comment section and they want to talk about, oh, this is a false accusation. And I'm like, listen, the number of false accusations is anywhere from 2 to 8%. I want y'all to statistically think about how possible this would be. So it's already minuscule, right? For a false conviction to then go through police interviews, years of investigative work, a trial, a decision by a judge, and the person to be found guilty. And for you all to still be in the comment section talking about Renato did not rape this young lady, to me is so shocking. It's the chances of it are, like she said, she'd probably win the lottery first. Because people who make false accusations, and there are women who do, 2 to 8%, a minority. By the time they start doing police interviews, all this kind of stuff, they don't normally even get to a trial, much less a successful trial. They're going to back away from the story. They're going to say, nope, I'm not going to, And one of the most, I thought the prosecution actually did a really, really phenomenal job with your case, because one of the things that she said to the judge that I thought was so compelling is, let's assume, because again, she wanted money from me. She wanted a relationship from me. All these absolutely stupid arguments that he put forward. Oh, my father was there that night, but no, my father's not going to testify. I mean, he was such a liar. And, I was in court during his testimony, Derin, and I want to tell you something that he would do. Every single time he would lie, he would turn and look at me as though he was looking for some sort of sign from me that I was believing this. And I don't know, I think most people know me. I often say that my mouth hasn't joined church, and I'm not really, I'm not one to F with on any day of the week. But in court, you have to keep your cool and whatever. But I would just give him a look, like, why the frig are you looking at me? Like, seriously? And I would make up my face. I'd be like, it was at one point he tripped himself up with a line. He said something, and then the prosecution asked for a break because she was like, I know you answered something else earlier. And she wanted to quickly go through her notes to come back at him with a question to basically prove him to be a liar. I can't remember the exact question right now. And he was like, no, but I said, because she's like, earlier in your testimony, you said blah, blah. He's like, no, I didn't. I said, and I blurred out, yes, you did. And I know I'm not supposed to say anything in court, but I couldn't help myself because he was so validation. Thank you, Miss Brenda. He was so full of lies And this is a man who I know who he is. I worked with him at DMS back in the day when I had a previous talk show. So I've been around him. I've never socialized with him. He's just not my cup of tea. And I don't mean to try to be rude to him, but he's not. At one point he was married to Cayman, and he's always using these women to get these anchor babies to be able to stay here. But I would consider that I had a cordial relationship with him in the sense of if I saw him, hey, Renato, what's up? Blah, blah, blah. I had him on my WhatsApp. He was in my WhatsApp news group. He was always giving me sauce about, this happened in the community. And the second I found out that he was in court for rape, and I did the very first story, I remember him blocking me from WhatsApp. And I said, well, he did me a favor because he knows I'm going to be on his ass now like white on rice. And I was going to follow this case, and it was, I remember when he had gotten fired from DMS the last time, and this was, this would have been not last year, but the year before, I ran into him at CNB, and he's like, Don Seymour is going to be starting up this new station, Bobo, that we're on this morning. And, I'm trying to get on the station, yada, yada, yada. And I said, okay, that's cool. I mean, he didn't know that I was going to be having a talk show. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And I said, but what happened to you over at DMS? He always had some story. And one thing about anybody who knows Renato, he would lie Jesus off the cross. He is such a pathological liar. And people like Don Seymour, the DMS organization, have given him so many opportunities over the years because he always had some excuse. He's been in jail before for doing some horrific things to his own child in the name of disciplining, right? Cruelty to a child and all this kind of stuff. And I tell you what, he's got some serious issues. So I saw Pearl in the comment section keep going on and on about DJs and oh, he's a professional DJ, so this is making him look bad. Let me tell y'all something. I don't like the term professional DJ because what makes him a professional DJ? He didn't go to no school, no training, whatever. He just got behind a turntable and started playing some tunes, and all of a sudden he's DJ Renato. Y'all elevate these people in your minds and this community for no good reason. They've not earned that. No respect from a professional capacity or a personal capacity. But this is what we do in our heads. We elevate these people. And I have a bone to pick with DJs because I can tell you one thing. He is not the only DJ who's out there plying women with alcohol and taking advantage of them. In fact, I believe that some of these DJs become a DJ just to be able to go around raping people because all of a sudden they have access to, tourists, visitors, women who are intoxicated. And that is the entire MO. And I have seen it too many times to count. And I mean, you guys might not remember this, but there was another case, go look it up on CMR page, where another DJ was accused of raping a 16, 17-year-old young lady. That he had promised her mom that, I'm gonna be like her big brother and I'll take care of her, blah, blah, blah. And how he took care of her was she alleges that he sexually assaulted her. He has never been charged. So, when people bring this argument to me, false accusations, blah, 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 I'm like, y'all need to shut up because you don't know statistically how difficult it is for a false accusation to go through years of scrutiny, the court process and all this stuff and come out on the other side with a successful prosecution. It just does not happen. I see a call. I don't know if this is someone calling to get on air, but good morning, caller. Are you calling to be on the program? Okay, so we're running into a little bit overtime today, but yes, we are still on air. So this is some of the foolishness that we have to endure in terms of trying to change the narrative. So you go through this horrific ordeal, folks. If you want to call in, the correct number to call is 92. What's the number? I can't even think right now. 926-3636. Good morning, caller. Are you calling to be on air? I'm still on air, my dear, but I'm going to deal with you guys in just a second. All right. So there's a strike going on in town, honey child. They're telling me come now, but we're going to try to go live with them in a second. But listen, I want to thank you so much. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you're doing now. I want you to come back on the program and talk about your advocacy because we've not even gotten to that. But this whole ordeal has turned you into a fighter for women and women's rights. And so you're doing a lot of advocacy work. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about, how you're helping other victims and survivors. But give us a little snippet of, your decision to get involved in that.
So going back to the point, the R. Kelly documentary opened my eyes to a lot of things. Even one thing I will touch on, even post-conviction, I still have some good friends that live in the Cayman Islands, and they would see him out socially. And this is, again, now post-conviction. So now we have a convicted rapist, and like, oh, he's at a section, people are buying him drinks. Even someone I considered a friend, and someone that's actually very prominent in terms of youth in the Cayman Islands that I respected a lot. There was conversation like, Renato being a DJ for his 30th birthday party, so again, I'm thousands of miles away in Canada, but by good or bad, because of social media, not even in the comments, I see and hear more than people think than I see and hear. And I can even see on my, because people know me in passing or in acquaintance level or through him, because I'm pretty sure he's told his people, his social circle, clearly so people can identify my name, even down to my social media. I see them coming on my personal Instagram. If I see it, I block it, type of thing. Anybody that looks suspicious from the Cayman Islands or in the nightlife space or entertainment space in the Cayman Islands, I usually just block. So I know a lot of people are, aware of who I am. Sorry, let me take this chewed toy away from this dog. Not to do that.
That's okay.
I forgot the question, but
you were just talking about how the culture is so accepting of him even after his conviction.
Yes, and that was what actually, coupled with the R. Kelly, which was years prior, what forced me to start my advocacy in my own city, around the Black community in my city, because I was like, wow, we actively go out our way to protect, uphold, amplify predators. It's not even a point of speculation, like to the point that we have tapes. Like this man was taping it, and you people see, because you can't tell me you didn't know, and you're actively surrounding yourself. There's no sense of accountability or what it is to be in community with other people, especially as Black people, whether you are in the Caribbean or in Africa or in the Americas. You experience so much external racism and subjugation from the systems that be. So why as a community are we actively destroying ourselves, especially the most vulnerable of ourselves, which are children and women? And that is really what ignited me, because I was like, wow, whether you're a pastor, politician, DJ, uncle, whatever, it goes across socioeconomic lines. It goes across statuses. The common theme is that Black men, grown men, a lot of them are fathers themselves.
Yeah. And let me just say this. Renato is a father of a young girl. Yeah. And I wonder if he ever could imagine a man doing this to his own daughter. This man is appealing this case now. Imagine after all this, he has the audacity to appeal this case. And one of the grounds on which he's trying to appeal it is he's claiming that he needs to be there for his daughter. Of all of the nerve of it all. I'm just like, really? She's probably better off having you in jail, because you're not an example of, certainly I, as a mother, would not want someone like you, even if you were the father of my child, to be around that child, especially not a female child, but no child, because you already, end up in jail for abusing your son.
Yeah.
But now he has the audacity to pretend to the courts like he is some father of the year, of the century, and wants to be out of jail so that he can protect his daughter. I mean, the shit that I hear that goes on in this country sometimes just blows my mind.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
And I think a lot of people don't realize, because especially for Black men, they face a lot. I'm not ever excusing what they face now, what they have faced in the past as well, like you know, throughout history. And I think also as a people,
and that's even more reason not to do this to anybody, but especially should be your Black queens, like women you should be trying to elevate. I mean, you don't do this to any woman. I want to be very, very clear, you know, because he claims that he does this kind of thing to Spanish women all the time and they're okay with it. So I don't know how many of you Spanish women out there have been raped by Renato Harris, but I apologize. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that as well, but there's no respect for anybody. And that's why I got pissed off, Derin, when his mother is in the comment section calling me a liar and his sister is trying to attack me and my family. Listen, you know, I just had to keep my cool. I had to just remind myself that I'm the professional here, because people like that will certainly bring out the worst in you, and you can't allow them to drag you down to their disgusting level. But women are supporting him, men in the community, like you said, business people that should be respectful, well-connected people, you know, they're out there putting money in this guy's pocket and still supporting him and still allowing him to be around women, buying women drinks. And, you know, God knows how many women he's raped since you, girl, because I'm pretty sure he didn't stop. Yeah. You know, it's just really disgusting. But I thank you so much for your bravery. And like I said, I do want to have future conversations about the advocacy work, because my biggest objective, and really the reason why I have you here, I see Ms. Dean saying that this might have been hopefully an opportunity for you to exhale and to, you know, some sort of maybe therapy in a way. I don't really know. I mean, I know you've obviously been going through professional therapy, but the reason why we have to have these conversations and why I appreciate your bravery is that we need to change the narrative in our communities. So I want to read you, Derin, some of the amazing comments that have been coming in, because I think I can't allow you to leave here today, because I know you've seen some of the negative from the stupidity. Those people are in the minority. Here's what some people had to say today. This person said, "Good morning. As a Caymanian woman who's also been raped, I want to applaud you for coming forward and in your journey to help other victims. Karma is a dish best served cold. You are empowered, and your rapist is in jail where he belongs. Respect and love on International Women's Day." I had messages were coming from all over, so let me just go and read some of these. I have another person says, "Morning, Sandra." Oh, that's an old message. Sorry. "Morning. Your guest this morning is a gift to the world. Thanks." This is somebody in the 876 area code saying, "OMG, God, Sandy, with teary eyes, I hope every rapist and naysayers are listening so that they can know how badly it is to be raped." Let me just see here. And of course, on the social feed here, tons of amazing comments that have come in. Janetta says, "Hats off to you for being so brave and for sharing your story." Everton, as a man, says, "How can you force somebody to have sex with you? No pleasure in that, no pleasure whatsoever. And Miss, you are lucky that you got out of that situation alive, because I think the only reason why you got out of that situation is because you had to stay calm, and you never know what he would have been capable of doing. A lot of time, those situations do not end well. So I'm grateful that you're still here."
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's me. Lavani says, "Derin, always remember that you're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think, and loved more than you know." Oh, that's so special. Shirley says, "Sounds like prison is really an upgrade for him instead of punishment." I think she's making that in terms of how he keeps his place. Prison's probably a lot cleaner. Yasmin says, "Sorry for what happened to you. My heart is broken. This is not the first time that he did this and got away with it. This time, you will never forget that day, but hold your head up high and go forward."
Thank you.
TT says, "No one awake and in their right mind wanted him, apparently. OMG, you're very strong. Just keep advocating. You've helped so many by doing this today."
Thank you.
Everton also shares, "For me as a guy, this is so hurt situation like this, no fault of their own. If she don't get more counseling, This will be, if she don't get more counseling, this will be with her for the rest of her life. I mean, it's going to be with you no matter what. And she will have no trust in men because of what this guy did to her. This guy should pay dearly by spending the rest of his life in prison. So men, do you see what happened to some lady when they reject us and we claim that? Yes. Why you don't want to be with me? You never know. Okay. Then it gets cut off from there. Debbie says, Derin, you're a warrior and no one can break your soul.
Thank you.
I mean, just some amazing comments this morning. RD Limited says, you're a very brave woman for speaking about this publicly. What you're doing should be empowering to other women in Cayman who have had the same unfortunate experience. Tracy, I'm not sure what that comment was about, Tracy. I think those are some older comments. Yes, so that was just a few of the comments, but I can assure you that there were tons more. Dorothy says she's keeping you in her prayers. Lavani says, thank you for turning your wombs into wisdom, Derin. You are loved. Moya says it's time for the Cayman Islands to also set the legal framework for heavier sentences for child molesters and child groomers. And they also need to install the sex offender registry for persons committing sex offenses. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yasmin says because it's never reached to their door, they will say anything, but wait until it's happened to their sister and daughter who is dear to them. And you know what, Yasmin, it's unfortunate, but even when that happens, you can't count on these people having the common sense to be supportive of victims. Sometimes people who are connected to victims, their family, their friends are still not there supporting them. I mean, look at poor Derin. Her so-called university friends didn't call to check on her, have never stepped forward to say, I'm sorry for what happened to you that night, have never said, we'll come and testify. At least we can say in court that we were with you up to this point. Like none of that. Have any of them ever reached out to you at all?
No, and I've had people post-conviction, people that I was peers with, that I was like just acquaintances, barely classmates with, and they've sent me such kind words. And I know these women, and all of them are actually older than me, have not reached out to me. And I know they're very much aware of the conviction and everything that's happened after. But one thing I'm practicing is grace in this very dark and scary world, and realizing that them apologizing, even Renato apologizing, is not a determinant on who I can be and who I will be and what my next step is. It's unfortunate. It's quite unfortunate. It's very disappointing. It's something that I will never fully reconcile with. But again, it's not going to limit me in who I am. So
yes. Strong Will says, good morning, Sandy. This is so disturbing. I would never speak to those friends again. To be clear, they're not friends. They were fair weather friends, as we call them, but they're not friends. Again, it sounds like a setup. These girls are not true friends. It's me says, thank you for converting. Oh, I read that one already, but I love that quote, by the way. I must tell you. Alejandra says, hope that she's healing with the journey and she's having with her confession and making a big awareness in the communities around the world. Janetta is saying that, your future relationships might be challenging, but she hopes that you find someone who's understanding. Elaine says, hats off to you. You're a strong lady. Yasmin, again, thanking you for coming forward. Dinar says, thank you for sharing your story, Derin. You're inspiring to so many. Elaine is advocating for castration for these men. I wish that would help, but Marshall says, speak your truth. You're a very brave young woman. Keep advocating for those who don't have a voice. Happy International Women's Day and month. Thank you, Derin. I mean, this has been an amazing conversation. And I thank you for working through all the pain today and still sharing your story with us.
Thank you. And yes, I want to thank you again for this platform. And again, being an advocate for your community, for the people, for the children of Cayman. It's not easy work. I mean, you put yourself, even your family, on the line day in and day out, but these are the stories, these are the voices, these are the topics we really need to talk about. And on the helms of International Women's Day and International Women's Month, I really just want to press the people who are watching to really be each other's keepers. There are a lot of problems in this world, like, earlier we talking about Russia and Ukraine, even what sexual violence is globally. It's like, it seems bigger than any one person, but the compassion and the love and listening and the non-judgmentalness and even checking what we believe is true and the biases and the crap we've been brought up to learn and been told our own life, being able to challenge that and being able to check on each other, especially as Black people, really be able to be our community and be each other's keepers. That's really all I hope and aspire to. And yeah, that is my wish and want for the world. But so I really just challenge everybody just to take a step back, even beyond my case, my scenario. I know we all know somebody directly, or we have experienced sexual violence ourselves. So we all have relations to this topic on various levels. So I think it's time for us to all step back and just continually reflect and challenge ourselves and challenge other people in our community when we see certain behaviors or protecting or, trying to evade accountability come up. It takes a village to really change these for everybody. So yes, thank you
so much. I really appreciate it. Oh my gosh, thank you. Again, folks, Derin, this young lady, amazingly brave, has come on here and shared this horrific ordeal. Has taken years off of her life, I'm sure, but hopefully the positivity that you've received today will give back what we can. I mean, if we could, through the airwaves, just show you how much, we love you and how much we appreciate just your strength and what it really took to come and share this story today with us. It's just amazing. And I think there are minds out there today who hopefully will reflect on their own attitudes towards, sexual assault victims, victims of rape, and really think about how they are contributing to the problem and how they are enablers, whether directly or indirectly. And this is not something, that is helpful to victims in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, thank you very much. And what's your dog's name, by the way?
Oh, Mr. Briggs. You want to say hi?
Mr. Briggs. Aw. Oh, he is so cute. He looks so much like my Coco. Oh my goodness. Hello, Mr. Briggs. Hi. Oh, he's so adorable. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Mr. Briggs. He was just a little champion there in the background.
All right. Thank you.
All right, Derin, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, my dear. All righty. Mr. Briggs is like, why y'all have me up here on the screen? All right, folks. We're into a little bit of overtime this morning. Couple things breaking. There's an accident down by Kipling Drive. The police are on the scene. It doesn't look that bad. It looks like the accident in front of Queen's Court was a fatality. I'm really, really sad to hear that, of course. I don't know what it's going to take for y'all to slow down. Don't drink and drive. Just take your time on the roadways. But roadways, sorry. We only have but one main road, folks. How hard can it be? But here we go. And whoever was involved in that hit and run, they're going to find you, honey child. So you might as well go straight to the police station. There's CCTV cameras. They will locate you. It's only a matter of when. Save yourself the trouble. Sometimes when you do wrong, you've just got to say, hey, listen, I made a bad choice. I was drinking and driving, whatever. Come to the forefront and just take accountability. That's one of the things with this particular rape case and this victim. He was never prepared to take accountability. And he's still sitting in prison now. Like I said, I don't know who his prison mate is, but he's still sitting up in prison claiming that he's the victim, which is just absolutely ridiculous. It could have gone, there would be so much healing if he just admitted what he did. and apologize to this young lady. But you can't expect that from a lot of people, unfortunately. And so, you know, it is what it is. There's some sort of a situation at the bus depot where there has been some sort of a strike or something going on. So I want to try to see now if we can get in contact with them. So let me just look at my messages real quick. Give me one quick second here to see if we can reach out to them and you know, see what's going on. So give me one second. All right, let me just see here. I had people messaging me about it. Let me see. Oh gosh, I get so many messages. Hold on. Sometimes it's actually easier for me to check on my phone for these types of messages. All right, so I don't know what they're, let me see here now. I don't know exactly what they are, what the protest is about, but I guess if I can get a hold of someone, we can find out. So, oh my gosh. All right, who was, message me if you were messaging about the bus depot. Okay, so I found one, hold on, found one number. It would be good if we could have someone join us from, just do the live link. There was a young lady who was messaging me about it, but where is she? We just posted the story not too long ago about a fentanyl bust over 200 pills. We're going to talk about that on tomorrow's program. That's a whole other hot mess, folks. We've been querying the police. I actually sent them an email last month about this whole fentanyl thing and what sort of penetration we're looking at in terms of that drug, because that drug will devastate the drug community here. Trust me. They'll be killing themselves left, right, and center here in a minute. If you think the few drug overdoses that we've had has been bad, I can assure you that it's going to get worse. Give me one second here. Let's see. So let me just call this person. They've sent a voice note. I'm not sure. I'm always hesitant to play voice notes because I don't always know if they're meant for just my ears. Well, let's call this person, see if we can get an idea of what's going on.
Morning, Sandra.
Hi, morning. How are you?
I'm good. You know, I'm not out there. It's just that I was corresponding for another person because they wasn't around Wi-Fi.
Okay.
But they're out by the bus terminal and the inspectors and all that is out there waiting also.
Okay. So I was trying to get them on air this morning if that was possible, but maybe I just need to go on location then.
I can give you a number, but she doesn't have Wi-Fi out there.
Oh, okay. Send me the number then and WhatsApp and I'll call, or yeah, send me her number and WhatsApp and I'll call her directly to see.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no problem. So we'll try to get I'm gonna have to probably get out there to try to
yeah, they people. Need you also.
Sorry. I hung up. Sorry. Didn't mean to disconnect. So yeah, so apparently there is something going on out there. All right, I tell you what. Let me play the news and I'll get to court. I need to go to court anyway, but I'll get out there as quickly as I can. And then obviously we need to get some people interviewed and see exactly what's going on. Okay, I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. So there is a situation that happened with a man trying to pick up a child of a sexual nature. A very, very disturbing incident last night. I'll discuss that tomorrow. Wow. Lots of craziness happening in the world. So listen, breaking update. You're going to hear it here first. This woman, Judith Douglas, has been charged with theft. And as of this morning, she's actually in court making her first court appearance. So let me see. Do I have an applause button? Where's my applause button? Yes. Right? Yes. These are some of the changes, folks, that we're trying to make in our community. And thank God, when we get even one prolific thief off of our streets, there's something to be said for that. And trust me, they've got more than enough evidence to get a successful conviction. I have made an Excel document myself, which I will send to the RCIPS to be able to give them to say, here, victims, receipts, lists. I don't know how she can get out of this one, honey child. Whoever defends her in court, they should just be like, listen, just plead guilty and go back to jail and sit down where you belong. So yes, there's some kind of protest in town. I'm going to see if I can, let me just see who's messaging me. I'm going to see if I can get out there. See exactly, sorry, what's going on. Let me make one quick call. I've got a number here. Now listen, some of these people have been trying to get a hold of the minister. I know he's off island at the moment. He's not going to be happy to hear this. But, you know, they say that they've been trying to reach out to him for quite some time and that they're not getting anywhere. And, you know, some of these ministers too busy doing everything but tendering to business here in Cayman for you all that voted for them.
Morning. Hello.
Hi. Morning. Sandra here. How are you, honey?
Giving thanks and you.
My dear, I try not to complain, but I hear you guys are having a little situation there today. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah, well, right now, because the buses, we put on strike the number 2s and the number 3s because of come here, Kevin. Kevin coming up because of they stop us from Friday. All of these years we've been going through Eastern Avenue, and all of a sudden to drop off. And now Friday come now they start to write up our border and tell us we must not go through Eastern Avenue again. And it's 98% because only number 1 must go through Eastern Avenue. Hold on, son. Hold on. Hello.
Hi. Morning.
Morning. Yes. Yes, to explain it a little clearer, what she was saying, right? For 20 plus years, we've been dropping off the passengers coming in through Eastern Avenue onto Shedden Road, right? All of a sudden, since Friday, the inspectors are coming out. Every trip you run, they write you up and they call you to the transport unit and give you a letter stating that they're giving you a citation that you should not operate on that road. Right? Now, bear in mind, these people are folks that we pick up on our road in West Bay. Right? So we can put the people back off the bus and tell them we can't carry them because then there won't be anyone to pick them up because they would be on our road in West Bay. Right? So all we're doing is dropping off the folks coming in town. So what they're saying now is we should not pick up anyone. We should not drop anyone around here. So we are supposed to tell the people that we can take them, or we are supposed to let them off by Baytown down by KFC, or drive straight on the waterfront and bring them to the bus depot.
So
let me
understand this, right? If on your route, so say you pick someone up from West Bay and they want to be dropped off on Eastern Avenue.
On Eastern Avenue, they are telling us we have to leave them. We tell them we can't take them. But yet that's our route, so another bus is not supposed to be picking them up on that route. Right. So it just doesn't make any sense.
You got that right.
Right. It doesn't make any sense.
Wow. And so
and this is not something that we were notified about that was coming or anything, you know. I've been driving West Bay for 16 years. right? And this was something that has been going on before I even started, right? So it just doesn't work out, right? So if they're telling us that whenever we get tree write-up, we are going to be suspended for it, then we can't risk that because it doesn't add up, right?
Wow.
Yep.
I'm gonna try to call Mr. Kim. I understand he's some director. Is he director of the bus depot or where?
Yes, and he's actually in the bus depot now. So.
Okay. So there. How many buses are on strike this morning?
It's about 10 or more right now.
Oh, wow.
Some haven't come out, and most of them are here now. We are all parked up here.
All right. Well, listen. Me come in. Me need to put on some pants, and I'm coming down. I'm coming down there. Y'all stay there till I get there this morning.
All right, because they're trying to organize a meeting by the public transport board, but we'd rather you get here before we leave.
Don't go nowhere, because they're trying to hoodwink y'all into some foolishness. Give me about 15, 20 minutes. All right, good. Yeah. I need to do the speed limit, so I'll come in. We're not calling Mr. Kim because he gonna have some excuse why he can't talk to us, blah, 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 blah. We're gonna go down there in person, folks, and see what the hell is going on. Giving such a big change, no notice, none of this makes any good public administrative common sense. I need to really get a feel for what's going on here. Yeah. So I'm gonna go and get in the thick of it. They'd called me right before the show this morning, but unfortunately they were like, come, and I'm like, not only do I have the show this morning, but I've got guests that are planning coming, and I couldn't, not have that show today. So I thank them for their phone call and their patience. I'm coming now, honey child. I just got to put on pants because I tend to wear shorts in the studio. Y'all are like, she's not wearing any pants. I'm wearing shorts. Don't get freaky. So I just need to put on proper pants and then get out of here. So I am going right now. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in this morning. I'm going to play the news, so stay tuned for the news. Kevin Watler also does a great job, always does a great job with that. And again, tomorrow we'll talk about the fentanyl bus and a couple other things. We can talk about the latest with that young lady as well. Now that she's in court today, praise the Lord, RCIPS. Thank you. I had to call y'all out. I know a little bit, but thank you for arresting and charging her. And please, judges, y'all need to throw away the friggin' key for this woman now. She can't help herself. She's a thief. And I don't know if she's stealing anything in prison, but at least you can kind of control what she steals up in there, I hope. All right, folks. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kevin Watler, and this is your CMR Daily Buzz. Here's a summary of some of Cayman's latest headlines. Former House Speaker and West Bay West MP Makiva Bush has been charged with 2 offenses relating to an incident that took place at the Caribbean Tourism Organization reception dinner held at Ritz-Carlton in September. Bush appeared in summary court yesterday morning from the police custody lockup via video link. Attorney Dennis Brady was with him. The jury in a trial of 29-year-old Javon Dixon, who's accused of killing his friend 32-year-old Joven Amor Fuentes last year, informed Judge Cheryl Richards that they were unable to agree on a verdict after 3 days of deliberations. His attorney noted that she will be requesting a bail hearing, given the fact that Dixon would otherwise be in prison custody until his retrial date in late August 2023. 2 men pleaded guilty to a major fraud at the Cayman Turtle Center dating back to 2015 when almost $500,000 was stolen from the farm through false invoices. 41-year-old Mark Manderson and his close friend 39-year-old Jeremy Williams admitted to a conspiracy in which Manderson reportedly used Williams' security company to steal the money from the Turtle Center using fake invoices. A ruling by the Grand Court that residential proprietors in the Britannia development had rights to enjoy facilities, including a beach and golf club, on lands now owned by DART has been overturned by the Cayman Islands Court of Appeal. The landmark judgment was delivered yesterday. Now for your CMR weather update, it's brought to you by WG Charters. Sunrise at 6:39, lots of clouds today. When the temperature's at 83 degrees Fahrenheit and the humidity at 64% like the forecast calls for, it will feel like it's in the high 80s. Winds east-northeast at 10 to 20 miles per hour and the sun sets at 6:33. At nighttime, the temperature falls to the mid-70s. Looking forward, a reduction in the clouds, but overall, similar weather conditions are expected. If you would like to know more on any of these stories, visit caymanmallroad.com or follow Cayman Mall Road on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. That's it for now on the Daily Buzz. Thank you for joining me. Please stay safe and God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels. And visit caymanmallroad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.